Welcome to this episode of HEYS Reviews Lives. This is episode 12, and this is the Sinecure is worse than the disease. And I've just completely fluffed the intro there. Almost 8 minutes of fluff. Well, I hope you like fluff. And in this episode, we're going to be talking about this word, Sinecure, which is a word that I learned during the course of setting up and preparing this episode for you. Now, I had a really nice opening spiel about how we can look towards the new year to improve ourselves and to greet this time that we have ahead of us with optimism and excitement and make some changes and behave differently. And that was wonderful, and it was probably unintelligible, garbled nonsense to anyone out there who's watching live. I'm not going to be able to recreate it, I just did it in the moment and now it's gone. So sorry about that, like a wisp of smoke in the air. But today, this is episode 12, and in form, as it's a bit of a cliche to do, but I'm going to do it anyway. I'm going to start with a dictionary definition. So this is the word sinecure, and this word is something I learned only recently. Sinecure. So this is dictionary.com. It is probably one of the not the best dictionaries out there. It's one of those internet dictionaries that isn't kind of backed up with any sort of university or old dictionary books that have been written and updated, over the course of many decades. It's just dictionary.com. But interestingly, this page had a definition of this word which wasn't in the Cambridge Dictionary, and so this is why I chose to show this one instead. So we've got this word sinecure, and then it's a noun, and it's telling us an office or position requiring little or no work, especially one yielding profitable returns. Okay, so this is really key, requiring little or no work. And then the second definition, which was not in the Cambridge version, is an ecclesiastical benefice without cure of souls. So I didn't know what any of that meant. So I asked around, and I asked some friends, and a friend put me onto this website, Online Etymology Dictionary. Really good place to come to learn about words and find out the history of those words and what they mean. So this word sinecure, now from the 1660s, so it's going back a ways, and it is to do with the church and clergy and particularly, I think, Christianity. And so a sinecure is a church benefice with an emolument, but without parish duties. Okay, so what does that mean? Well, beneficium sine cura, benefice without care. So the Latin is sine means without, and cura, which means care. So this word sinecure, it means literally without care. So if we just quickly nip back to this definition. So this is an office or position where you yield profitable returns and you do little or no work. And not only do you do little or no work, but you are without care. Okay. So that's sinecure. And why we're focusing on this word is going to make more sense as we move through today's episode. Now, today's episode is absolutely packed. I've got a ton of books. I've got interviews, a documentary to recommend, resources to give you. So they'll be coming up throughout and interspersed as we move on through the articles and the sort of headlines that I've got to look at today. Bear this word sinecure in mind because it is going to become relevant, and we are going to be seeing it again later on. All right. So we're going to start with the Telegraph today, and this is a headline about a small railway footbridge taking longer to build than the Empire State Building. Now, that's pretty hard to believe, and it's quite a bold claim, right? But this is Network Rail's construction of the bridge at Thiel Station, and it's more than 10 years overdue. So that's the structure there. 3 staircases and a little sort of walkway bridge across the top. And I suppose these little columns here probably have lifts in as well. So you got 3 lifts. And this thing has taken a long time. And the writer here is telling us that the Empire State Building in New York took less time to build than Network Rail is taking to complete a small pedestrian walkway on the London to Bristol line. Construction was already 10 years overdue when it began in January 2023, and it is not expected to open until spring 2024. In contrast, the Empire State Building, which was for decades the tallest building in the world, took just 1 year and 45 days to complete. Check that out. 1 year and 45 days. The MP Sir Alok Sharma described the Footbridge saga as a case study in British bureaucracy and inefficiency. So I wanted to begin with this article because it really highlights where we're at versus where we used to be at. You know, we used to be able to knock up the tallest building in the world in less than 2 years, and now we can't build frankly ugly, grim-looking structure that is sort of utilitarian. And I heard there's a word for this kind of style, brutalism. You know, I don't think this is quite brutalism, but it's getting there. It's a very ugly, it's clearly not been created with any kind of sense of love or beauty or care. It's like functional, get it in, whack it up, and it's been dragged out. And what is the reason for this? And what is the ramifications of not being able to build something like this in, I don't know, a couple of months? Should we be able to whack something up like that? So I thought this is a really great article because it kind of contrasts what we used to be capable of with what we are now doing, to ask the question, well, are things getting better? Are we becoming more advanced? Are things heading in a direction that is leading to more efficiency, more productivity, to more beauty, to more good outcomes for the human race? I would submit the answer is no. The funding for the upgrade to Teal Station, which was first announced in December 2011, and the budget was £1.25 million. In the meantime, the budget has rocketed to £9.5 million. Coincidentally, the same cash sum the Empire State Building cost to build. Now, obviously, adjusting for inflation, it's not the same amount of cash, is it? It's going to be very different, but quite incredible nevertheless. And Sir Alok told the Telegraph, the redevelopment of Teal Station is a classic case study in just how slowly even relatively small infrastructure projects are delivered in our country, with resultant cost increases having to be picked up by the taxpayer. We have to get much better at untangling the stifling bureaucracy and red tape. Yeah, great point. A lot of bureaucracy, a lot of red tape, a lot of people just kind of employed and doing work, but really contributing nothing to the actual output and the outcomes. And so, moving on, we're looking at this story now from the Daily Skeptic, and this is all about how Britain's economy, and this connects very closely to the previous story, because why is it costing so much and taking so long to build a simple, straightforward building that we've built many, many times before? It's not like there was anything innovative or new in this collection of staircases, walkways, and lifts that we put at a train station. There's no innovative thing we had to. It was like, we've done it 1,000 times. Why did it take so long and cost so much? Well, it's because the economy has been trashed, and not by Brexit, according to Daily Skeptic. So this is actually a quote from a Telegraph article where Matthew Lynn is writing, importantly, it doesn't square with the data from across the continent. So this is the idea that Brexit is the cause of all our economic woes. And he's saying that doesn't tally when you look at other countries, such as Germany, where the GDP over the last quarter, after 6 months of zero growth, and is forecast to slump into a full-blown recession early in the new year. And French growth is slumping back towards zero too. If Brexit is the explanation for our poor performance, how come the countries that stayed are doing so poorly as well? In reality, it was lockdown that crushed the economy. During the pandemic, we racked up too much debt, destroyed our work ethic with furlough schemes and home working, and created a backlog in the health service and in other public services that have crippled productive potential. Yes, well said. So not only have we got this kind of ineffective, bloated bureaucracy that is stifled and stymied by massive amounts of red tape and form filling and box ticking, we've also added on top of that work from home allowances where people are nowhere near as productive, furlough schemes where we've racked up all this debt by paying people to not go to work. That was back in the days of lockdown. And then this backlog in the health service because we terrified people into staying indoors for so long and living unhealthy lives and not seeing friends and family, not going to the gym, not going to church, not having access to small independent producers of high quality organic food, because the only place you could go shopping was the mainstream supermarkets, and most of what they sell is crap. It's created this health backlog of people who have not gone to get their symptoms checked and figured out. And so that all that is kind of coalescing into this perfect storm where now the economy is looking pretty poor, and we can't even build a set of staircases, lifts, and railway walkway at a station to any degree of efficiency. So it's kind of alarming, but I'm not here to alarm people. I'm here to sort of shine a light on what's happening, what's going on, so that we can get conversations going about how do we improve this and how do we make things a little more smooth for people. And it's very important that we recognize the true cause of what's going on, which is not Brexit, and definitely is most likely to be lockdown, in my estimation anyway. So where did lockdown come from? Okay, so what happened? How was lockdown instituted globally for the most part? Good luck trying to get countries across the world to all agree on something, you know, and yet in 2020 they all did. They all agreed on this one thing, that the measure to be taken was to scare and frighten and browbeat and threaten and coerce and manipulate people into accepting just unprecedented conditions. But, you know, these lockdowns have happened before in different places, and this kind of psychological bullying has happened before. But for it to happen on this global scale in the way it did, it was an incredible masterstroke, and I don't think anybody really saw it coming. And it was such a shock to my system that it prompted me to go on this journey of learning and asking questions and reading and trying to dig up sources of data and information, books, documentaries, content creators who had really dug into the history of how this situation, how we were brought to this situation, how it was enabled, and so many moving parts to it. But one of the things that popped up is this name, the Bilderbergers. And so the expose has done a really good piece here, which is all about the names and faces of the 150 Bilderbergers who manipulated the COVID-19 pandemic response. So if lockdown trashed our economy to the point where it now takes, well, yeah, you saw it. You saw the stats, the Empire State Building and this train station. Who manipulated that response to make it happen in the way that it did? And this is the name that pops up, the Bilderbergers. So this page, it says here, attempts to name and shame them and reveal the roles they have played, they being the 150 Bilderbergers. And so this is a really good article and a really good resource, because we get this downloadable document here, which is a 20-page document from the website Wikispooks. And this tells us all about Bilderberg and the 2021 meeting. And they came up with this thing called the Planetary Emergency Plan. So that on its own is a really good resource that you can dive into to learn about who these people are and what their names are and who they work for and their reputation and their legacy that they're trying to build, and how they've all come together to kind of push this global response, and the motivations behind making that happen. So we got a view of the contents here, and you can see it hits all the big relevant topics. You got the injections, lockdowns, furlough, digitalization, masks, controlling the narrative. You've got academia, big media, promoting panic, censorship. So it's pretty what's the word? It's pretty comprehensive. And I like the fact that this article is naming names, because I've been sort of criticized before for saying they and not going into actually who's doing this. Excuse me a second. And so I love it when I can bring you actually some names to go and research and learn about and to investigate, because they're not often, there are some publicly known names that are very mainstream and that are thrown out there all the time, but a lot of them are not. And so you got to do a certain amount of learning and reading to get the grammar of the situation, like who are these people and who are these players. And the Bilderberg Meetings is a really good place to start. And so if we look into the Bilderberg Meeting, we can a good place to start. It's not a good place to start, but Wikipedia is always a solid starting place because it gives you the sort of official, this is what we want you to think about a topic. But they have the Bilderberg Meetings here, so it's not a secret. It's not a conspiracy theory. It's an annual off-the-record forum established in 1954, and they have an agenda, and their agenda is to prevent a world war, but it is now defined as bolstering a consensus around free market Western capitalism and its interests around the globe. It says here as well that they follow the Chatham House rule. So the Chatham House in the UK, this is another very influential think tank whose origins go back to the books like Tragedy and Hope and The Anglo-American Establishment by Carol Quigley. The Chatham House rule is this idea that anyone who goes to the meeting can use any of the information that is discussed there, but they're not allowed to say who gave them the information or where they got it from. So that's the rule. So they can go in there and they can say whatever they want and exchange all the information that they have to exchange and come out and use that. But it's basically privacy. We don't, it's like the first rule of Fight Club. We don't talk about Fight Club. And the second rule, we don't talk about Fight Club, right? So these meetings have been chaired by Prince Bernhard of the Netherlands originally, but he stopped doing it in 1975. And since then, the meeting has taken place every year, except 1976, when it was cancelled due to Lockheed bribery scandals involving Prince Bernhard. So Lockheed is a massive weapons and arms manufacturer, and there were these whole bribery scandals where politicians were bribing this company to sell them arms and planes and things like that. I don't know too much about it, but it stands to show that these people are not squeaky clean. They are involved in scandals and bribery and these sorts of underhand, under the table deals, and that is publicly admitted in Wikipedia. So Lisbon hosted the 69th meeting in 2023. That was just last year, and we can learn a little bit about the origins here. Originally, they were brought together to promote Atlanticism, which was a better understanding between the cultures of the United States and Western Europe to foster cooperation on political, economic, and defense issues. We had the head of Unilever, which is a pretty evil company dealing with chemicals and pharmaceutical products, and they're into all sorts of shady things. The head of the CIA was involved, so you've got the intelligence agencies involved as well. And it was funded by the Ford Foundation. Back in 1957, the first U.S. conference was held in Georgia. £30,000 from the Ford Foundation, and they also supplied funding for 1963 conferences. So you've got intelligence agencies, you've got large foundations, philanthropic foundations, you've got royalty meeting up, you have got massive representatives from huge corporations such as Unilever, and they get together and they have a rule that nobody talks about what you can use the information, but you don't talk about where it came from. So we all hide each other's secrets and we cover for each other, right? And it's got some stated activities and goals as well. And this quote really stood out to me because in 2001, Dennis Healy, a Bilderberg Group founder and steering committee member for 30 years, said, "To say we were striving for a one-world government is exaggerated, but not wholly unfair. Those of us in Bilderberg felt we couldn't go on forever fighting one another for nothing and killing people and rendering millions homeless." So he's admitting that him and his coterie and these people who are going here are responsible for what happens to the lives of millions, and they've rendered millions homeless and they've been killing people. So we felt that a single community throughout the world would be a good thing. So it's one world government in everything but name, in other words, and that's admitted right here on Wikipedia with a link to a Guardian article Who Pulls the Strings from March 2001, which I think presumably was back when The Guardian did work that was worth reading. They've since abandoned that completely, and they're just establishment mouthpieces at this point. But I guess that is still there. We could probably click that and go and see it. Oh, no, we can't. Oh, well. So, with the Bilderberg, we can view on Wikipedia a list of the participants. And so I had a quick look at this and a scan through, and right off the bat, United Kingdom, there he is, King Charles III, attended back in 1986. And we've also had Prince Philip, the Duke of Edinburgh, attending in 65 and 67. And then we also had the Queen Beatrix of the Netherlands, and she's been there all so many times. Look at that. They can't keep her away. She must love those meetings. And this name, Queen Beatrix of the Netherlands, reminded me of something else that I've talked about on this show before. Did I get it up? No, I didn't. But she was the recipient of one of the Charlemagne prizes, which, if you've seen my episode on changing demographics and migration and immigration, you'll know that the Charlemagne prize is awarded every year to recipients who have done work for integrating Europe. And it's people like Henry Kissinger, Tony Blair, Queen Beatrix of the Netherlands. But it's the inversion, because actually what these people are doing is destabilizing Europe and letting massive amounts of people in and allowing the culture and the heritage and the identity to be kind of just washed away and forgotten. And replaced by something which is more amenable to a global one world system. You know, I use the example of Starbucks drinking, Netflix watching type culture, which is no culture at all, really. So her name stood out. She's also a Bilderberger, along with King Charles III, who is known as the Sustainable Prince, because he's now pushing this religion of Gaia worship, and he's saying we need to, we belong to the planet does not belong to us, is something he said in a recent speech. So he's really pushing this agenda of we need to make sacrifices to save the planet. We need to go back to eating bugs and living in caves to save the planet for the greater good. And that's his kind of main message, and he's been involved in that kind of activism for a long time. But you can see on the left here we got it's no secret who attends these meetings, but it is a secret what is specifically talked about and agreed upon, and what deals are made and what is discussed there. Okay, but further down we can have a look at academic in the United Kingdom. We can look at corporations in United Kingdom, United States. I highlighted some of the corporations who've been represented there from the US, which includes the OpenAI president, Sam Altman, Jeff Bezos, the founder of Amazon, Albert Bourla, the CEO of Pfizer, Bill Gates, Microsoft, Eric Schmidt and Peter Thiel, Alphabet, that they own Google, and the PayPal co-founder. So from America, you can see a lot of these. Oh, we got IBM in there as well, which if you've seen my channel, you might have seen that I reviewed the book IBM and the Holocaust. IBM, the Holocaust would not have been possible without the technology that IBM provided and sold to the Nazi regime and Hitler. So, yeah. Oh, and there, Starbucks. There you are. Right. Perfect. So I'm talking about this kind of homogenous global culture that they're trying to spread everywhere. That's Coca-Cola drinking, Starbucks drinking, Netflix watching, Marvel superhero worshipping, vegan, purple-haired, tri-bi, alphabet people, sexual, pan, animal, cat, furry nonsense culture that they're trying to send everywhere and spread everywhere. And Facebook, again, it should be no surprise really that all of these international brands and conglomerates are kind of united and working together with the likes of King Charles, Prince Philip. Well, he's dead now, but he did say when he was alive that he wanted to come back as a virus and contribute to depopulating the earth. But these corporations are working with royalty. They're working with big hitters from military, financial institutions, and academia and media. to kind of push the needle in the direction of one world government and new world order. And we're going to move on to that in a little bit. And my argument of and the sort of thrust of this episode is that these people really, in many cases, they constitute this sinecure class. They constitute this. They're making loads of money. They're not doing any work, and they're doing what they are doing. They're doing without care. Okay, and that's kind of my argument of what I'm laying out in today's episode. So. So this is the list of Bilderberg meetings from 2023. The most recent one, which was in Lisbon, and here are the people who went to that meeting. Deutsche Bank, OpenAI again. So we got the Atlantic represented there, Goldman Sachs, Shell and Pfizer, the European Commission, World Economic Forum, Heineken, which interestingly, with the Heineken logo of the beer, it's got a red 5-pointed star on it, and it has the word Heineken. And if you turn it upside down, the E's in the word Heineken become 6s, and you get 666, and the 5-pointed star becomes an inverted pentagram. Just an interesting piece of symbology kind of encoded into the branding and the marketing of that particular product. We got, what else we got? Stanford University, so it's academic. We got GCHQ. So this is the British NSA. This is the spying and snooping agency that collects all the data and gathers all the intelligence in the UK. We've got the Deputy Prime Minister of Chrystia Freeland. So this is Canada's Deputy Prime Minister, and I highlighted her, and I wanted to use her example for a second because I wanted to show you something, which I'm going to show you right over here. Now, I hope you can still hear me. I think you can. It looks like you can. So this is Chrystia Freeland's book, Plutocrats. And you can see it's the rise of the new global super rich and the fall of everyone else. So even the Deputy Prime Minister of Canada is writing books to tell you that there's a super rich class who are going to cause the fall of everybody else, which includes presumably not her. Presumably she's in this class. But yeah, it's I haven't read the book yet, but I wanted to add it to my collection because it's one of these kind of revelation of the methods, telling you the truth type books, where they come out and tell you, right, this is what is happening. And in a lot of cases, they're telling you that this is what is happening and there's nothing that can be done about it. So you just got to suck it up and deal with it and accept it. So thanks for that, Chrystia Freeland. Anybody out there who's sort of interested, you might want to grab a copy of that book and get some reading and some learning done. I can read you a little bit from inside here just to give you sort of a taste of what it is, what's in it and what it's about. So she says, this is a groundbreaking examination of wealth disparity, income inequality, and the new global elite. There's always been some gap between rich and poor in this country, but in the last few decades, what it means to be rich has changed dramatically. Alarmingly, the greatest income gap is not between the 1% and the 99%, but within the wealthiest 1% of our nation. As the merely wealthy are left behind by the rapidly expanding fortunes of the new global super rich. Forget the 1%. Plutocrats proves that it is the wealthiest 0.1% who are outpacing the rest of us at breakneck speed. All right. So Chrystia Freeland, she's telling you that there's welcome inequality. That's a thing that exists. Some people have a lot more than others. Some people work harder than others and earn it, right? But in many cases, let's take the royal family, for example. They didn't do anything to earn that wealth and that luxury that they enjoy. And yet it gets passed on generationally. And so people have been in the business of amassing wealth and power and influence and passing it on generation after generation after generation. And this goes back hundreds, if not thousands of years. Okay. And these people, they're always going to want more. If you've dedicated your life and then the lives of future generations to amassing this wealth and this fortune, you can only do it by ripping people off and taking from other people. And this is really what is at the root of the sort of parasitic class and the sinecure class of people that are sort of latched onto us as a species and are just sucking us dry of wealth. And the thing is, though, that it's like an addiction. They're never going to have enough. They're always going to want more. They're always going to be hatching new plans and ways to rip people off and ways to steal. And in a previous episode, I talked about The Great Taking, this incredible book from David Rogers Webb that was released not very long ago about how the legal mechanisms have all been put in place to take away from people any sort of non-physical paper-based asset, right? And anything that you owe debt on. The legal mechanisms are already in place for secured creditors who are not you and me. These secured creditors to be able to hoover up all that collateral in the event of some sort of financial catastrophe or some sort of collapse, right? And so that information, coupled with the information laid out by Chrystia Freeland here, you can kind of start to think about and understand who is behind these kind of things and responsible for this situation. And I think it is good information and good dots to connect alongside this list of people who are going to these shady Bilderberg meetings and having conversations that are off limits to the likes of you and me. So that's Chrystia Freeland, the Deputy Prime Minister of Canada. You can read her book, Plutocrats. Who else was there? The Economist was there. Palantir Technologies, they're shady. Warner Brothers, Henry Kissinger was there, of course. Kissinger Associates. Carnegie Endowment for International Peace, that's another philanthropic organization. We got David Lammy from Great Britain. He's a Labour MP. British Petroleum. Bloomberg, The Economist. We got Microsoft, Financial Times, Google, NATO, Carnegie Endowment again, Teal Capital, Goldman Sachs, Financial Times. Right. So you can see that all these large mainstream institutions, they are all kind of involved in rolling out whatever the agendas are of these people who are going to these kind of meetings. Okay. Very public knowledge and easy to see. So I thought it'd be good to provide more references on this topic, and I did a quick search on Amazon for the Bilderberg Group, and there's a few books that come up, but this one stood out to me because it's £109. Whenever a hard copy of a book is that expensive on Amazon, always tells me that there's something in there that they want to put people off reading. Why on earth should this book cost over £100? Really, it's not that expensive or tough these days to print books. I mean, there's print-on-demand services all over the place, right? So that high price, that high markup tells me there's something in this book which is very much worth investigating and learning about. And they say here as well, it's not even concerned with conspiracy theories. Instead, it is about certain fundamental forces that shape the world in which we live, and it is about consensus, elite power, and consensus in world affairs. What is a consensus? This is when you get everybody to agree. This is when you get everybody to be on the same page and think the same and act the same and believe the same information, and there's no difference, and you really quash the things that make us human, which is that, you know, we're different. We have different cultures, we have different cuisines, we have different styles of dress and beliefs and behaviors and moral systems, and you know, that makes life interesting. It gives flavor and texture and adventure to the world. But if we just have everyone wearing gray and black, drinking Starbucks, and going along in a consensus view that is the right way to think, and anyone who deviates from that gets shut down or slandered or pilloried or debanked, or any of these other mechanisms they use to shut people up who question the consensus, it's going to be a pretty grim place to live. So that's what we're doing on the show, speaking out against that, drawing attention to it, giving people opportunities for further learning to upskill themselves in talking about these things, communicating them to others, teaching them to others, particularly young people. So there's a resource for you, Bilderberg People. And you could probably find cheaper copies for that somewhere. If not, you could almost definitely find a free PDF copy online if you know where to look. Not that I advocate that. I think you should buy it, obviously. So going back to the topic of the Sinecure class and the government and the people who want to manage us and run the system here and steer where society goes, this is an article on Charles Hugh Smith's Substack titled "Everyone Loves a Generous Government Until They Have to Pay for It." Not only does everyone love getting free money from the state, they also love hearing the fantasy repeated endlessly that debts are no problem. This is December 22nd, 2023. So governments, like individuals, can spend liberally with great generosity, or they can be frugal. But there is no such thing as truly free money, a reality discussed by Niccolo Machiavelli in his classic work on leadership and statecraft, The Prince, published in 1516. Machiavelli pointed out that the spending demanded to maintain the reputation for free spending liberality soon exhausted the funds of the state and required the leader to levy increasingly heavy taxes on the citizenry to pay for the state's largesse. It turns out the generous government is anything but generous, as it is eventually forced to impoverish its people to support its spending. Great points, and I think I wanted to drop this onto your radar so you can read it in further detail. Machiavelli was way ahead of his time, and he really wrote the playbook on how to run a state, how to use all the different tools available like statecraft and manipulation and coercion, how to manage your public image to get away with amassing more power for yourself. And so it's a really great article connecting the principles and the teachings of Machiavelli to this bloated, bureaucratic, red tape bureaucracy that is taking the produce, of its citizens and doling it out to whoever it deems worthy. And in many cases, that is people who are not from here. The system here has been kind of designed to benefit people coming in who can get a lot of free stuff and get a lot of maybe a place to live or support with their healthcare or the ability to bring family members over. That is all made very easy if you're not from here. And then if you are from here, try like getting on the housing ladder if you're my age or younger without the help of the bank of mum and dad. It's pretty tough. And that is quite unfair, but it's being done deliberately, and the kind of organizational principles underneath can be found in this book, The Prince by Niccolo Machiavelli. So I thought that was a good article to highlight and put on your radar. It gives some really good quotes and goes into government spending, the problem with free money, the amount of money that is printed to, pay people to stay at home during the pandemic, for example, or pay people to be unproductive. You can be unproductive in society and still get money given to you by the state, and have that building up and have your bills paid for and your accommodation paid for and these kind of things. So why would you want to pay people to be unproductive and not have a use or a function in society? It's very strange, but I think I know why. But here's a good article to explore for you as well on that topic. So when we're thinking about the Sinecure class and this sort of parasitic class of human beings that are just sitting back and hoovering up the wealth and the hard work and the productivity of other people, we got to look at the narratives that are put out there. And this headline stood out to me, which is about MPs will be helped to spot conspiracy theories. Commons Library tells the Telegraph it will be providing help under umbrella of its confidential research service for MPs and staff. This headline stood out to me early in December 2023 because because one, like, they're not interested in the real conspiracies, right? Why don't we help the MPs to spot actual conspiracies and put the kibosh on those? I don't know. Why don't we start with that annual meeting of the Bilderberg Group of the most influential and powerful people in the world who meet annually, and they tell you what they're talking about and who's going to be there? Could it be possible that these 1%, the 0.1% of the 1% of the 1% have some sort of effort to some sort of some sort of impulse or advantage to getting together and talking with each other and sharing their resources and their knowledge and their information in order to protect each other's situation and make sure that they can continue to enjoy ridiculous levels of power, influence, wealth, and luxury at the expense of the rest of us. Maybe there's some conspiring going on there in those meetings that the MPs should be taught about and educated about and should be investigating. But no, we're just going to go after the theories, because it's not the actual conspiracies that are provable and very likely to be happening. We'll just go after the theories, the theoretical ones. And why is this? Well, we learn about it in this article, which is MPs are to be given resources to help spot conspiracy theories amid a warning from Penny Mordaunt that people are being bombarded with deliberate misinformation. So I had to click this link because there's a link here that says bombarded with deliberate misinformation. So I thought, okay, well, what is this deliberate misinformation that people are being bombarded with? And I clicked that link, and it took me to another Telegraph article, which says the web is polluted with misinformation. The internet pioneer says. So this is Vint Cerf, and he said in a Royal Society speech that there's too much poor quality information online. And this whole article is all about getting this word polluted into your mind, because it's mentioned here: polluted, polluting, polluted. And so I thought, okay, the previous article said to us that the people are bombarded with deliberate misinformation. So let's click the link and find out what that deliberate misinformation is. And I read this article, and all this article says, it says nothing about misinformation, and it says nothing about the deliberate bombardment of people with disinformation. What this article talks about is this dude complaining that there's inaccurate information on the internet, which is messing up ChatGPT. You know, so he's saying here, ChatGPT is notorious for inventing information, with the company itself admitting the program sometimes writes plausible sounding but incorrect or nonsensical answers. And the reason he found this out is because he asked it to write his own obituary, which I thought was a morbid test. But yeah, he's sort of saying, so he said he asked a chatbot to write his own obituary and found that it had invented family members and given him credit for work that he had not done. So his whole argument is that there's the ChatGPT is combing the internet and scooping up and making things up and conflating information about people who are actually separate people and thinking it's the same person, and for that reason, he thinks that that we need to behave more like Henry Kissinger and insist on robust and extensive information on subjects, and you'll see why that's relevant later on. But that is just to all say that this link about being bombarded with deliberate misinformation is completely unjustified by the article that it links to, because that's not what the article talks about. So this is just a lesson for you in terms of reading online content, that just because it's underlined and it's linked doesn't mean that the evidence it's linked to actually supports that statement. And this is how pictures are painted and people are misled, and that we are kind of given a false sense of the things being the way they are, you know. So what are these conspiracy theories that MPs are going to be helped to spot? Well, obviously anti-Semitism and COVID injections. Yes, very important theories there. And the Commons Library told the Telegraph it would be providing the resources under the umbrella of its confidential research service for MPs and their staff. And the Commons Library, which is a government branch funded by taxpayers, has some impartial library experts who are going to fact-check information and verify data to help MPs to be certain they are accessing accurate content. Because this has been prompted by a flood of online disinformation. And the Online Safety Act is going to help to deal with the problem by forcing social media companies to remove illegal content. Anti-Semitism, anti-Islamophobia. Oh, we haven't heard much about that for a while since this whole October the 7th thing kicked off. But yeah, that is still out there as well. How to recognize conspiracy theories and lead the charge in clamping down on hatred. So they're kind of saying that conspiracy theories lead to hatred, and that for that reason we need to get rid of them. What they actually mean is conspiracy theories and researching theories and conspiracies leads to people understanding what this Sinecure class are actually doing, people understanding that they're parasites, that they do not give anything back. All they do is take, and they distribute that wealth amongst their friends, and they put systems in place to secure more power and influence for themselves. And it's them that we're going to hate if we start learning and educating ourselves about real world conspiracies, which is really just the study of history. But you know, they say, oh, we need to stop these conspiracy theories because people are going to hate the Jews or they're going to hate Muslims. And it's like, no, we're going to hate the parasites who are ripping us off every single day. But this comes ahead of a UK general election. Now, I just heard recently from, I think, Parallel Mike's podcast that, or his chat group, that this year, 2024, something like half the countries in the world have presidential elections this year, or the equivalent of like huge elections this year for half the countries in the world. I don't know if that's true, but it's going to be a wild and bumpy ride for sure. And I think we could probably expect to see more clamping down on freedom of speech. You know, freedom of speech exists. We should be able to sit down and talk about whatever we want, whether it's theoretical or not, history, verifiable, conjecture. We're just making sounds with our mouths, right? But they don't want people to be able to do that because people are starting to wake up and rise up and become wise to these control systems and mechanisms and the people who are pushing them, such as the people who go and meet in Bilderberg meetings every year. The people who kind of more and more are latching onto this bloated bureaucracy that doesn't produce anything or make anyone's lives better, and it's just busy work, and it's all done to kind of gather information and just to keep people getting paid in many cases. So that's kind of alarming. I think what that actually means is we can read between the lines here and sort of read that as there's probably going to be some kind of crackdown on conspiracy, on freedom of speech and the ability to research and get good information, right? So I pulled up the House of Commons library to see who they are, and they really want you to know that they're impartial, even though they're funded by tax money that is taken under the threat of imprisonment. So basically stolen money. They're funded by stolen money, and that stolen money is given to them by the people who run this place, this country, but they're impartial. So you can be sure that they're going to be calling out corruption, calling out, under the table deals and conflict of interest and these kind of things when they're getting paid by the people running the country. Yeah, okay, sure. We strive for accuracy and impartiality, right? Okay, I believe you. Honest. I thought this stood out to me. We frequently update and amend our publications to take account of new information and updated source material. So this stood out to me because this is the digital era. This is the era of things being published online and then being edited after the fact and memory hold. So I've pulled up examples quite a few times on this show of headlines that were changed. And the original headline is changed. You know, they test it, they see the reaction. Oh, that's pissing the wrong people off or getting the wrong kind of attention, and they'll edit it and reword it. And this is the problem with digital media and digital content. And it's going to get worse because we've got this powerful tools now which are being called AI. They're not really AI, but this powerful software now that can generate incredibly realistic audio and video that is very difficult to identify as software generated. And so, we might be in a time soon where I do a live stream and upload it, and by the time people come to watch the replay, things have been altered and edited by an algorithm or some sort of censorship software. That is, that could be within the year. That's how close we are to this. And so it's why I advocate, as always, physical copies of physical books, and grab them and preserve them and build up a library of knowledge and information that you can then sort of protect and preserve and teach others from and pass on to future generations who are growing up in this sort of digital soup of complete confusion, contradictory, nonsensical, dismiss, malinformation. They don't know their arse from their elbow. and that's, the digital world and the publishing sphere of digital content is largely to blame for that. And so we can offset that damage by buying books, preserving them, and reading them and teaching from them and relying on them in this time of kind of censorship and confusion. So that's something I wanted to highlight, because they're saying we update and amend our publications. So it just means nothing is solid, everything is shifting and everything is changing, and whatever we are told, it means that they can be told to change, like, get rid of that, we don't want that in there, and they can just go in, tap, delete it, boom, it's gone, change it to something else. It's 1984, George Orwell, Ministry of Truth type work. The main character in that book, he spends his time erasing references to different people and making them not exist from history. This is real-time editing of reality, or the reality they want you to believe, right? And you can hedge against that with books. Okay, book rant over. The other thing I thought was good on this House of Commons library website, I was clicking through and looking at different things, and they had this research briefing on enforcing restrictions in the coronavirus, all about how to force people to, allow the government to wreck your life. And this bit gave me a good giggle down here. Police approach to coronavirus restrictions. The police have adopted a 4-phase approach, and it's 4 E's: engage, explain, encourage, and enforce. And for the second one, explain, the officers try to education people about the coronavirus risks. So these are your impartial fact-checking experts who are going to provide the MPs with their true information and warn them about scary conspiracy theories, and train their police to go out and education people about the risks. That just gave me a good hearty chuckle about how inept and incompetent these morons are, and how we just need to laugh at them and kind of move forward with building community and better systems and better alternatives to the nonsense that they're trying to roll out. Police powers, I just highlighted a few here because what we're seeing now is police powers are being justified on the basis of just suspecting. And this happened, and this is back in 2021. Yeah, July 2021. So police have a range of new powers that they can use if they suspect you've broken the rules, if they suspect you're breaking. They can use reasonable force if necessary, based on a suspicion, if they formally charge suspects with an offence. And in Wales, they can come in your house without permission if they suspect you've broken a rule. So we're getting into pre-crime. We're getting into, you don't actually have to have broken any law or done anything wrong to have the police kicking your door down and coming in to smash you around the head with a stick. Right, excuse me a second, I need to clear my throat. All right, back. I've just about got over the embarrassment of goofing up that intro. And I've just about found my flow. Well, an hour into the broadcast. So onward, forward, let's keep going. So another one from the Telegraph. This is: Britain's only growth area is regulation and red tape. Our economic prospects are under serious threat. It's time to rein in the regulators. So I think this is a really good point. Again, as with all publications, you will get some truth from time to time. So it's important not to say everything in the Telegraph is all garbage. Equally, it's important not to say everything in the Telegraph is 100% solid and I believe it and trust it. But this is an article about the regulation of digital companies. and how too much regulation risks turning companies off from investing here and having their headquarters here. Excuse me. And so this is talking about David Sachs, a prominent Silicon Valley venture capitalist, is saying no way that he would have set up the European headquarters of his startup Yammer in London today under the current CMA scrutiny. And Chamath Palihapitiya has similarly warned that the CMA's approach reduces the incentive to do business in the UK. So this CMA is a regulator, and they are overseeing like things like insider trading and things like unfair market practice and unfair competition. And they're just stifling people's willingness to invest here and getting in the way of companies setting up in this country, further harming the economic situation and outlook that the lockdown has brought on. I shouldn't say that lockdown has brought on. I should say that the Sinecure class of uncaring and unproductive parasites have decided to roll out here. So there is talk about how the UK may be cut out of future deals, which ultimately means a loss of jobs, innovation, and growth. But this A-level economics approach to competition, which assumes markets function best with many small firms, misunderstands how competition functions in practice. So on the face of it, this article was kind of suggesting we need less red tape, we need less bureaucracy, and then we can have more startups and more people coming to the UK to start their businesses and have their headquarters. No, that's not actually what this article says. Further down, what he's saying here is assuming that markets function best with many small firms is wrong. Actually, larger companies can use their scale to provide cheaper goods and innovation that benefits consumers. So what he's actually saying is more consolidation, more multinational companies, less competition, and less, which is just a race to the bottom. It just means you end up with one company doing everything, and because they have the monopoly, they have no reason to provide a good service or to care whatsoever about the quality of the products or the well-being of their customers, because they've cornered the market. Nobody has any alternative but to use their service, right? So stupid article, I thought, although it seemed good on the surface that he was going to be saying the regulation and the red tape is stifling things. He actually goes on to say, no, we need more larger companies, and we need more because they're the ones who can give us cheap stuff, and what this country needs is more cheap stuff. All right, so this next article we're gonna be kind of shining a spotlight on a member of this Sinecure class for this and for this part of the show, and this is a Middle East Eye article about the Israel-Palestine war and how Tony Blair, the former Prime Minister of the UK under Labour, he is open to becoming Israel's humanitarian coordinator in Gaza. And this is a suggestion put forward by Netanyahu as international disquiet on the humanitarian situation in Gaza grows. So Netanyahu's a bit concerned that the international community are saying, hang on a minute, what you're doing over there is pretty evil and despicable, and you're just indiscriminately murdering thousands and thousands of children and women and taking out so many innocent civilians and citizens in your attempts to attack Hamas. And it's starting to draw the attention of things like Amnesty International and a lot of left-leaning publications and people are kind of paying a lot of attention to the atrocities that are going on there. And Netanyahu's answer, bring in Tony Blair, one of the most evil UK politicians to ever exist, I would argue. So that's what this article's about. Let's get into it and have a look. Former British Prime Minister Tony Blair is open to a role as Israel's humanitarian coordinator in Gaza. And a suggestion first put forward by Netanyahu. So Blair's discussing the situation. And more than 11,000 Palestinians have been killed in Gaza since 7th of October, the vast majority children and women. This was published on the 13th of November, so the numbers are way higher than that now, almost 2 months later. But yeah, vast majority of women and children. So he's calling in Tony Blair for damage control. And if you don't know much about Tony Blair, you'll see why this is ridiculous very soon. Blair's got long-standing ties in Israel. And he was mediating between Palestinian Authority and Israel in the past, so obviously he did a great job then. Didn't he? He did such a good job at mediating talks and helping these two groups of people to get on with each other that they want him back to do more. He was a controversial appointment as peace envoy in 27, immediately after resigning his position. His legacy among critics largely revolves around his decision to join the US-led invasion of Iraq in 2003. The reason people criticize him for that is because there was no evidence that weapons of mass destruction existed. It was a lie that was perpetuated in order to justify the invasion of that country. And we were dragged into it. And there were millions of people marching saying they did not want to be dragged into it. And Blair dragged us into it anyway, kicking and screaming, leading to the deaths of I don't even know how many innocent people, all based on a lie. The man is a war criminal. And yet he's still walking there out and about, living his best life. So a little more digging on Tony Blair turned up this very interesting article from November the 14th, 2023. And a website I've never been to before, but this is Winter Oak. And I'm going to be diving in and checking out more of this gentleman's work. But this is an article called Tony Blair and the Rothschilds. And if you were ever in any doubt about the true nature of this man, just look at this one picture. Just take a look at it while I have a swig of my coffee. The evil is pouring out of every single every aspect of this, like the crooked tooth, the wrinkles, the smile. It's like he looks like he's watching people be tortured in this picture. That looks like the expression of like a sadist watching a public execution. That's what I think that expression sums up right there. And this guy is, oh well, let's find out about him. So Paul Courtenay. There's something very odd about the way that former British Prime Minister Tony Blair has never quite left the centre of the public stage. He is so widely loathed by the British public as a hypocritical war criminal who used the Labour Party to advance a cruel neoliberal agenda that when he was given a knighthood by the British state in 2022, more than 1 million people signed a petition demanding the honour be rescinded. Whether calling for the UK's Brexit from the EU to be reversed, accusing Jeremy Corbyn of anti-Semitism, or demanding the imposition of vaccine passports and digital ID. These are all the things that he's been involved in, and yeah, a 70-year-old warmonger is right. He once suggested as full-time president of Europe. French President Sarkozy suggested Tony Blair be the president of Europe. And he's now being touted by Israel as peacekeeper in the Middle East. I mean, this is just laughable, hilarious. This shows you that it's a soap opera that we're looking at, that it is planned, that it is not designed. It is the plot of all this unfolding is calculated to rile up anybody who's paying attention, not only to rile you up, but also to signal to you that it is so laughably fake that you cannot seriously think these people are the best and the brightest among us and are leading the country because of their skills and their prowess and their abilities and their knowledge. Like, no, they've been groomed to be part of this Sinecure class to roll out and be the public face of an agenda that comes from somewhere else, probably from the Bilderberg Meetings or somewhere like that. But that is what they're, because you can't look at this guy and take him seriously and think he's good at what he does or has any ounce of moral virtue or decency in him at all. But interestingly, it turns out that Blair has an office in Israel. I didn't know that. He was also a member of Labour Friends of Israel for decades when he was in Parliament, so that's another big flag and tell there. His refusal to call for a ceasefire in the 2006 conflict between Israel and Lebanon, together, of course, with his ongoing unpopularity due to the invasion of Iraq and the so-called War on Terror, is regarded as the main reason why he was forced to resign as PM in 2007. But in 2009, he was awarded Israel's Dan David Prize for exceptional leadership and steadfast determination in helping to engineer agreements and forge lasting solutions to areas in conflict. Just 5 years after the $1 million annual handout went to World Economic Forum boss Klaus Schwab. So Klaus Schwab and Tony Blair have both won this Dan David Prize that Israel gives, which is a prize of $1 million, a big pat on the back, it's kind of like giving your dog a treat when it rolls over and does the trick that you want it to do. It's a pat on the head. Good boy, pat on the head. Very good little loyal follower there. But Klaus Schwab, head of the World Economic Forum, forefront of trying to roll out technocracy, digital money, digital IDs, and all of that adding up to a slavery system that the people will not be able to live any kind of life under if it goes out, right? So this article is really epic, and it goes on, and it's very detailed, and we've got lots of screen grabs from the projects that this 70-year-old warmonger is involved in, LinkedIn grabs of people he's cooperating with, Glenn Manning, who's a Rothschild & Co. Banker, and a bit more about Manning here. In 2021, Manning became portfolio advisor to R&Co 4 Generations, which is a Rothschild philanthropic fund which is explicitly involved in the new form of public-private digital slavery known as impact investment, and in the promotion of the closely related United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. Yeah, so many dots to connect and pieces of the puzzle to put together, but all these things are relevant, particularly the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. They sound very good, but they're all actually code for just bringing down your standard of life to an absolute bare bone basic minimum, lower than people had in medieval times, where at least you had a garden to grow food in, and you could walk around the country and kind of like travel to wherever you wanted to go. Oh, but it's much better now because we've got Netflix and Starbucks. The aim of both the Rothschilds and Blair is to wipe out what is left of traditional human life and freedom in order to impose their new world order of artifice, surveillance, and control, in which the 99.9% are confined in smart city gulags, eating insects, while the criminal, ultra-rich are free to treat the rest of the world as a privatized party zone and safari park. Yep. So this is the 1% of the 1%. Everybody else who's left, if they survive the Depop efforts, which I covered in my last stream, top of the Depops. They said king of Depop there, but that's Bill Gates, isn't it? He's the king of Depop. My last stream was top of the Depops, and I talked all about the pincer movement that's coming in to make fewer births happen and to make more people opt for death earlier on in life. Earlier than they would do. So, this is a very powerful, short, single sentence paragraph that I think sums up very nicely what is going on. 1 second. Now, I highlighted Neil Ferguson here because not only is Neil Ferguson a Bilderberg attendee, he is the official history writer of the Rothschilds and other people. He also wrote the volume 1 of Henry Kissinger's biography. He is a firmly placed establishment figure whose job is to write the official history of things. Okay? So it's a name to watch out for and be aware of. Definitely worth getting his books, because it's always good to know what they want you to think and what they want you to know about what they're up to and who they are, with the caveat that he is so firmly supported by the establishment. His job is to leave a lot out and to obscure certain details and truths from the story that he tells you. But being aware of him, it's a good step. And so this article is kind of like the last one, very detailed, tracing all of Tony Blair's connections to bankers, JP Morgan Chase, Price Waterhouse Coopers, PepsiCo, Phillips, Goldman Sachs, and all the different people that he's linked to. So this is a real good deep dive into who the man is, what he's about, and why we should be viewing his activities. We should be scrutinizing and watching what he's up to, where he's going, because it's very insidious. And Paul Courtenay has books. I didn't know this, but he's written books. So here's one, Converging Against the Criminocrats, Essays and Talks for the New International Resistance. And that's free. You can find the PDF and read that there. And he has this one as well, which is Enemies of the People, the Rothschilds and Their Corrupt Global Empire. That's 113, so a little bit shorter and easier to read, I would say. But he's obviously doing very diligent and detailed work, and he's putting up his material for free so that there's no barrier and that anyone can get in there and read what he's uncovered. True journalism, and the kind of people we should be paying attention to and supporting, in my humble opinion. Another article here that I'll give you the link to underneath the video in the show notes is this one from Rise, How Tony Blair is Coordinating with the Rothschild Family to Fundamentally Reshape British Society and Implement a Global Digital Slave State, aka possibly the most important words I've ever written, from Ben Rubin back in August 2023. So another very good resource, very detailed. This gentleman did an interview with Debbie Evans from UK Column. So I'm going to link you to that as well, which is here. And just take a moment to kind of highlight UK Column. If you are interested in news and you like to get your news in a sort of traditional person sits down and talks to the camera and gives you the headlines format, UK Column is a really good, solid alternative to, the BBC and ITV and Channel 4 and all these other kind of captured outlets. UK Column is independent. It is funded by the listeners and the viewers, and they do fantastic work. They really cover excellent topics. They put out podcasts, videos, deep dives. They've got all sorts of different big picture analyses of aspects of what's going on that is not covered in the mainstream very often. So they've got a bunch of series here that you can dive into: Doctors for COVID Ethics, One World Governance, Global Citizen Movement, Fake News, The Weekly Nudge, Dying for Good Health, A Dissident's Guide to the Constitution. That one's really interesting if you want to learn about the UK Constitution, the unwritten Constitution that we have here. So a spotlight on UK Column is a great place to go for a good resource, news and analysis. And so if you weren't aware of that website, now you are, and you can thank me later. But Ben Rubin, who's this guy? And this is the guy who wrote the previous article that we just looked at, this one here. Ben Rubin, who is he? Well, he spent 18 years transforming how companies operate using artificial intelligence and machine learning. It didn't take long for him to realize that the Western system is corrupt and needs replacing. In his first UK Column interview with David Scott, he discussed the rise of big data in healthcare. And he's the founder of Rise UK and Pattern. So very much worth learning about the kind of people that Tony Blair is in with, and then seeing how the next degree with Tony Blair being in with Israel, the kind of people that the political elite of Israel are in with, by 2 degrees of separation. So good resource there for you as well to investigate and look into. So this is where I learned about the word sinecure from this article in The Conservative Woman, which is Blair's Children, the Rise of the Globalist Sinecure Class. So this is what my whole kind of stream is about today, is this globalist sinecure class. And what does the word sinecure mean? What are they up to? Who are they? Naming the names, trying to piece together that picture and paint it out for people who doubt or who question, who say, there's no conspiracy to enslave the whole world. Well, yes, there is, and they have names, and they're doing it out in the open for the most part. It's just that many people are distracted by silly stuff, cute cat videos, and maybe some, reality TV shows, this kind of thing. But there's plenty of people analyzing it and working on it and creating wonderful articles and books and documentaries for you to look at to learn about this if you so desire. And this is a good one that I liked. And this kind of kicked off the construction of this whole episode today, was reading this exact article. So this is Blair's Children, The Rise of the Globalist Sinecure Class by John Wycliffe. I'm not going to read too much of it apart from this bit here, which I think was a really excellent, powerful couple of snippet. It should be glaringly obvious by now that we are ruled by a globalist sinecure class who use political office merely as a stepping stone to future riches and opportunity. Public policy is used not in the interests of the country, but in obedience to globalist conformity and personal gain, a trend which surfaced after the Iraq War when the columnist Richard Littlejohn first leveled the accusation at Tony Blair that he sought to gain commercially from decisions which saw 179 British servicemen and almost 500,000 Iraqis killed. Yep. So let's just nip over here quickly to the book cam, and I've got my second book of the day to tell you about, which is this one, The Strange Death of David Kelly. So this book is by Norman Baker, MP, so a member of Parliament, so somebody who's close to this globalist sinecure class. And we can get in here, we can zoom in a little bit, check that out, boom, book cam. Norman Baker is an honest politician of unusual integrity, says Peter Osborne. So how does this book relate to Tony Blair and the 500,000 Iraqis who were killed and the 179 British servicemen who were killed as a result of his commitment to join America in the Iraq War? Well, we can read right here. We can get a little pointer. The death of the weapons inspector Dr. David Kelly is considered by many to be unfinished business. For this book, Norman Baker spent over a year in active research, receiving much new information from many sources. He shows that the Hutton inquiry verdict of suicide is not credible. He has the determination and courage to get to the truth of what really happened. Yeah, Dr. David Kelly, he was a weapons inspector, and he went into Iraq and he said, there are no weapons of mass destruction here. And then soon after that, he killed himself. And there was an inquiry into his cause of death, and they ruled and decided suicide. Norman Baker says no, and has investigated that, and he's written this whole book, which is about, let's see, we've got about a good almost 400 pages here. And look at that, it's even got pictures. Now, we all love a book with pictures, don't we? Come on. And there he is, there's the man. Prime Minister Tony Blair leaving the High Court after giving evidence at the Hutton inquiry. So Blair was there, he was giving evidence, and he had something to do with their verdict, no doubt. Norman Baker, MP, was not happy with that verdict and decided to take matters into his own hand to do some research, some learning, and that book was the result of it. Have a look at it and really get familiar with the way these characters operate, these parasites, this sinecure class. They are immoral, they are deeply selfish, they're psychopathic, and they're very anti-human, and they don't really care what happens to the rest of us. So how is this sinecure class, because you would think, like, they're human beings, right? And all of us human beings, we have certain characteristics that make us empathetic and compassionate towards each other. If not to everyone, then at least to the members of our own family, to our friends, to our children, brothers, sisters, parents, grandparents. That's innately built within us because we are, for want of a better phrase, we are pack animals. We thrive in community, and we suffer and we die if we are alone. And our survival is down to the fact that we can build relationships and community and cooperate and work together to make things happen, to overcome challenges, to build structures and to hunt animals and to gather food and to share knowledge and pass it on to future generations. That's human culture, and that is what we're built to do, right? And so how come all these politicians and business people and members of royal families who are all meeting and conspiring together at the Bilderberg meetings, how come they can be part of all this evil agenda? Like, I can't. It's impossible. Like, there's no way people out there would be doing this evil stuff to us, is there? They just wouldn't do it. Well, maybe they have no choice. And that's what this next article is going to dive into. And my next two book recommendations that I have for you here is also going to dive into. Maybe these people have no choice. What do you mean, Nick? What do you mean maybe they have no choice? Well, Tim Burchett, who is a Republican representative in the US, he claims that conservative congressmen are blackmailed after getting drunk with an attractive stranger and ending up naked in a motel room. So Tim Burchett has come out, spoken to the Mail Online. This was published 21st of December 2023 while you were busy wrapping presents and getting excited for the big day and, making some eggnog and counting down to the time you get to kick back, put your feet up and eat lots of Quality Street. This story came out that there's a Republican representative who's kind of blowing the whistle on how the political system works, which is largely by this process of blackmail. So what is he saying? He's saying that powerful people who write big checks are behind blackmailing schemes to protect their portfolios. They know what to get at, he said. If it's women, drugs, booze, it will find you. It will find you indeed. So he says that this explains why good conservatives are voting for crazy stuff in Congress. It's because there are sex tapes on them and they are being blackmailed. Now, I haven't highlighted too much more in this article because you can get in there and read it for yourself. But I have a better resource for you than this article, but I wanted to use this as a kind of inlet into this topic of blackmail. Now, when it comes to blackmail, there's really only one person that we want to be listening to, and who has been doing the really good deep dive work into this, and that is the inimitable Whitney Webb. This can be seen here on the right. So I'm not playing the audio for this. This is 2-hour podcast. I think if I'm not mistaken, it's a 2-hour podcast. But here you can see Richard Grove, forensic historian, and he's interviewing Whitney Webb about her two books, Volume 1 and Volume 2 of One Nation Under Blackmail. Now, these books came out fairly recently. And I'm saying these books. Let's actually get over here onto the book count. I'll show you my copy, and we'll zoom out a little bit. So this is One Nation Under Blackmail, Volume 1 by Whitney Webb, and then there is also Volume 2 that goes with it. The sordid union between intelligence and organized crime that gave rise to Jeffrey Epstein. And that is a fairly formidable piece of work, those two books together. But this is investigative journalism par excellence. This is the kind of work that is invaluable, and the books are so well referenced. There are just hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of footnotes for every chapter, and it doesn't have much of a narrative, so it's not the kind of book you read and it's a page turner and it's exciting. It is just every sentence is just a fact. And almost every sentence has a footnote to back it up and tell you where she got that information from. And who is being talked about in this book? Well, wouldn't you like to know? Well, luckily I can tell you. There's all sorts of people getting talked about in this book. In fact, I can't even... it would take too much time for me to go through and list them all, right? But needless to say that Tony Blair and these representatives who are being blackmailed, this book is going to tell you all about how that's done. And the thing to do with any kind of book like this is to go straight to the back, have a look at the index, and just rifle through there and try and find some names that stand out. Try and find areas of interest, and then go and read those pages. You don't have to do cover to cover. You can just think, all right, who am I interested in? Interestingly, here we've got a lot of Bank for Commerce and Credit International. Oh, you can't really see that, can you? It's a bit dark. I mean, it's a bit... yeah, that's not coming up very clear. Never mind. You can see the cover, and that's what really matters. But my point is that people are being blackmailed, and this is how they go on with doing these horrific things, and how they get stuck and trapped in serving their masters, the people who own them, and it... I can only imagine it's probably surprisingly easy to get dirt on someone and blackmail them, because all you need to do is get them in the pub, slip something in their drink. The next thing you know, they wake up in a hotel room and they don't know what they've been doing for the last few hours, and they're naked, and it kind of goes on from there. And you just need a hidden camera, and you get that footage and you send it to them, and you say, look, we've got this footage, we're showing it to your wife unless you do what we say. Now, unless you root out and account for this mechanism in the political system, then you can't say you know what's going on and that you have total faith and trust in politicians. Like, are you really saying that no politicians anywhere can be blackmailed and they're beyond that and that doesn't happen? Of course we can't say that. And so blackmail is a part of how this sinecure class gets away with doing what it does, and continues to do what it does despite people's outrage, despite people's awareness. Most people know that this is going on. You got to be kind of living under a rock to think that the system is working, and the people who are inhabiting it and working in it are good, moral, upstanding people who want the best for you. And so there's some resource for you there for further learning. Whitney Webb, type the name in and search for her work. It is really high quality. It is really well put together, well researched, well referenced, hard to debunk, hard to ignore. All right, let's get back to the show. So a couple of articles that I haven't read in their entirety, because you got to be a subscriber to read the whole thing. But this is Eugippius on his own website, and he's got a couple of articles here about the managerial menace. So this kind of ties in to our topic today of the sinecure class, who are the sort of red tape bureaucratic elite that sit on top of the rest of humanity. And he's talking in the opening here about strange things that happen in academia, non-profits and businesses when resources are increased. So he says, as universities get wealthier, you might expect them to improve education, but instead they merely expand their administrative staff and embark on deranged, decades-long construction crusades. As non-profits draw more donations, they tend not to divert more resources to their core functions, but rather to hire more staff and to increase various administrative projects like grant making. And as businesses improve productivity, they do not merely book the increased profits, but also divert a sizable portion of the new funds into the expansion of their white-collar ranks. Yeah, so if you have a business and it's proving to be successful and you're making a lot of money, what tends to happen is you then grow increase the layers of bureaucracy that are needed to maintain and sustain that. And this is happening in all these different areas of life. And he's saying that very similar processes are at work in government. He's saying on average, countries devote 10% of their GDP and about 20% of public expenditure to public sector employees. These are such incredible sums of money, especially for wealthy developed nations, that it's hard to comprehend. In the EU, 17% of the whole workforce is employed in the public sector. The egalitarian Scandinavian countries, state employees account for 30% of everyone with a job. And that's nothing compared to the Eastern Bloc before 1990, where the state controlled vast parts of industry and accounted for 70 to 90% of all employment. When the state takes in more resources, these resources serve above all to grow the size of the state itself. Often, this is the form that social welfare programs assume, and socialist ideologies which aim to fold most private enterprise into the state are very direct and unapologetic about their program on this front. So it's all for the greater good, as usual. So he talks about how these expansions to government happened after World War I and again after World War II. And what all these government bureaucrats do is an interesting question. Exactly. Well, I would submit that what they do is push the agendas of families like the Rothschilds and elite banking groups, and the top 1% are probably pushing the agendas of the 0.1% of the 1%. Right, it's a pyramid structure, and at every level of the pyramid, your job is to keep the people in the layer below you in check and to do the bidding of the people in the layer above you. This is why all corporations are structured this way, and everybody is trained to have a boss, a superior, and to have an underling, an inferior by implication, that you boss around and you're responsible for telling them what to do. It's the same when you're at school. And there's a kind of a discussion about hierarchies and are they natural and do should they exist. But one thing I would argue is as long as people voluntarily come together into a hierarchy, as long as it's voluntary, it's fine. But if it is maintained and enforced on you under threat of imprisonment, of the threat of violence, then it's not fine, is it? Right? There's no reason why you got a king and a queen sitting at the top of the pyramid with unimaginable levels of luxury and wealth, and they've done nothing to earn that or to deserve having that life or that lifestyle, which is run and lived at the expense of other people. The sinecure class, right? So good article here and a good analysis of how this came to be and some of the history into how this parasitic layer has formed above us. And then another example here about managers and why they're not great. Managerial class is another good way to think about them. And what he says here is proliferating managers make institutions top-heavy and difficult to control. So many people are involved in making decisions at Yale that it is hard to understand why it acts as it does. Everything Yale does is subject to enormous inertia. It's hard for the institution to stop doing obviously stupid things even after everyone realizes that what it's doing is stupid. Moreover, because the managerial focus is recursive to the institution itself, a big part of being a Yale professor or a Yale student is now consumed not with teaching and researching, but with talking about Yale, serving on committees that address various aspects of Yale, and satisfying the inward-looking managerial requirements of Yale. That is, I think, a microcosm of the macrocosm of what we're dealing with. Massive amounts of non-work, massive amounts of just servicing and serving the bureaucracy for the sake of it, fulfilling the needs and the requirements, box ticking, form filling, all these kind of things. That is going on. And it's non-work. It's busyness with a Y instead of business with an I. It's fake work. It's pushing pixels. It's just, it's so soul destroying that so many people have to be engaged in that. And that's what's known as work these days. And they're not producing anything of value. They're not making people's lives better. They're not making a product or a service that people need that enhances freedom and compassion and decency and moral integrity. They're not in service of truth, not in service of a higher striving and reaching to a more moral and humane society for each other, fellow humans, and the other beings on the planet. None of that. Instead, what I got to do is move some pixels around all day, sign into some Teams calls and Zooms calls, look bored, say, yeah, thanks everyone at the end of the call, log out, goof off. It's just very strange and very sad that we've been herded into emulating these sinecure managers who do nothing and expect to make lots of money. That we've kind of been created in their image, when really what we should be doing is starting our own businesses, learning skills, making worthwhile, valuable products, growing food, making clothes, learning to repair things, maintain things, working in our communities with the people around us to form that like community resilience that has sustained us since we've, been around as a species. But no, that's what's under attack. So instead, we just have lots of people sitting at home, clicking buttons, typing on their laptops, and we call that work, and we pay them for doing that, and I'm included in that. And there's nothing, I'm not judging people. I'm just ranting about the state we're in and how you can see that we're being made in the image of this parasitic class to our detriment, to our enslavement, and what I would submit would be a better option would be for us to get off our behinds and interact in the real world and come up with something valuable that you can offer. And everyone has something valuable they can offer. Every individual is unique and like a snowflake, but not emotionally weak like a snowflake, that kind of snowflake. I mean, unique and powerful in that nobody has your specific mix of life experience and knowledge, and nobody can bring exactly what you bring, right? Nobody can do what I do, right? There's only me that can sit here and put this show together and goof up the intro and play a bit of guitar music and make that, because no one else is going to mix those different elements together in a specific way that I do it, right? And that's true for you as well, and that's true for everybody. Like, get out there and start creating and start making something. You're going to come up with something totally and wholly unique, and other people are going to resonate with it, and they're going to say, yeah, I like that, I dig it, I'm going to support that, I want more of that, right? Most people are going to look at it and say, that's crap, I'm not interested. You cannot please everybody, and that is not the goal. The goal is to collect 99 no thank you, right? But if you get one person that says yes please, then you focus on that person, right? And you focus on serving that person, and you bring what you do to that person to the best of your ability. And then sooner or later, they're going to tell another person, you go, hey, check this thing out. And that person's going to introduce someone to you that says, yes, please. Now you got two people, right? And this is how it grows. But most people are going to say, no, thank you. But you're just looking for those people who say, yes, please. And you are unique and powerful, and you have something that nobody else has to communicate and to bring and to manifest in the world. And focusing on that and bringing it out and bringing it to people is much better and more rewarding and more valuable and more beneficial for the human race than pushing pixels around all day for no discernible reason or benefit other than you get some fake fiat currency in your bank account at the end of the month. Right? So I hope that rant and tirade makes sense. On with the show. So this is Unlimited Hangout, and this is the website of Whitney Webb, whose interview I just spotlighted earlier, and whose books I showed you, One Nation on the Blackmail. She also runs Unlimited Hangout. So she's a woman of many talents, and this is a really excellent resource. Lots of investigative series. Klaus Schwab, Jeffrey Epstein, Teach, not Chrissy. I think that's a typo. Sustainable Slavery, Cyber Reason, Engineering Contagion. She's got a podcast. She's working with other authors. She's got press and media appearances, ways to support her. And you can also read the website in Espanol. How about that? So this website is by Matthew Ehret. Sorry, not this website. This article is by Matthew Ehret. He's also a fearless, intrepid investigative journalist running his own website with his wife. I think it's called Canadian Patriot. But he works with Whitney and he writes on her website. And this is kind of an old article, November 2022. But it's about the Club of Rome, which is the think tank which came up with the idea of pushing climate change as an existential threat and using that as an excuse to gain more control over the lives of everyday people. So the Club of Rome is a kind of Bilderberg-like think tank, and they go way back. And they have their books and their publishings and their influence has fed into this Rise of the Predictive Modeling Mafia. So Matthew Ehret's done a stand-up job in this article, and he writes, while many are now familiar with the manipulation of predictive modeling during the COVID-19 crisis, a network of powerful Malthusians have used the same tactics for the better part of the last century in order to sell and impose their agenda. Yes. So, picture, this is the famous hockey stick graph. I like how he's pointing to a stick with his stick. The best way to predict the future is to create it. That's a quote from Abraham Lincoln. So this article, Matthew Ehret is telling us, while much propaganda has gone into convincing the world that eugenics disappeared with the defeat of Hitler in 1945, the reality, as I discussed in my previous article, is far removed from this popular fantasy. In that previous article, I reviewed the origins of cybernetics as a new science of control, created during World War II by a nest of followers of Lord Bertrand Russell, who had one mission in mind. This mission was to shape the thinking of both the public as well as a new managerial elite class who would serve as instruments for a power they were incapable of understanding. So I would say the managerial elite class Matthew Ehret's referring to here is what I'm referring to when I say the Sinecure class that we read about in the Conservative Woman article a few articles back. So it's this group of people that think they are the managers, that they have a right to manage the rest of humanity, and because we're incapable of taking care of each other and ourselves, or ourselves and each other, I should say. So he says that we also explored the science of limits that was infused into the scientific community at the turn of the 20th century with the imposition of the assumption that humanity, the biosphere, and even the universe were closed systems defined by the second law of thermodynamics, which is entropy, and thus governed by the tendency towards decay, heat death, and ever-decreasing potential for creative change. I highlighted this. I thought it was interesting that you mentioned the second law of thermodynamics. One of the things that really blew my mind and kind of woke me up and made me change was that I realizing and learning about how the Darwin's theory of evolution, that there was nothing in the universe, and then there was a big explosion, and then cosmic substances organized themselves into planets, which organize themselves into single-celled life forms, which organize themselves into multicellular complex life forms. All that narrative, all that grand vision and story about how the universe and existence came to be breaks the second law of thermodynamics. So you can either believe in the Big Bang theory, Darwin's theory of macroevolution, or you can believe in the second law of thermodynamics, but you cannot have both. And I thought it was a really good question to pose to people because it got my cogs turning and spinning and whirring when I had that pointed out to me. So I just wanted to throw that out there, little thought hand grenade to play with. But going back to the article, he says the field of cybernetics would also become the instrument used to advance a new global eugenics movement that later gave rise to the transhumanism, which is an ideology that sits at the heart of the Fourth Industrial Revolution, as well as the Great Reset, which is Klaus Schwab's World Economic Forum initiative. In this article, we will evaluate how this sleight of hand occurred and how the minds of the population and governing class alike have been induced to participate in our own annihilation. And yeah, this is a really good point. I like how he says the governing class alike. The minds of the population and the governing class have been induced to participate in our own annihilation. This is a really key and critical point. The group who are going along with this agenda and pushing it out on behalf of the people who are telling them to push it out, they're going to get chewed up and spat out like the rest of us. You know, anyone who's kind of participating in bolstering up the system and keeping it alive and encouraging people to get stuck, to get the hooks of the system in them, whether that be through debt or technology or digital identity. These are all hooks that once all these hooks are in, it's going to be nigh on impossible to get ourselves out, right? And this applies to the governing class as well. This is like the 0.1% using the 0.9% who are using the 99%, right? I think my maths added up properly there. It's not my strong suit. But even they're being used, and they're going to get wiped out with the rest of us when it happens, when the gate slams shut, and when the trap is sprung, right? So right now we're just having all the ground is being laid and prepared, and the different pieces are being put in place. Once it springs, once it is activated, once it clamps, it's going to clamp down around our ankles, but it's going to clamp down around Tony Blair's ankles, you know? It's going to clamp down around many of the public-facing figures that we see, because they're doing the bidding of someone else somewhere else. The real people who are pushing this are the ancient kind of families and groups that are never really talked about, or they don't disclose themselves publicly on purpose, right? Because why would you? You wouldn't have to. So this article is humdinger. It's massive, loads of data and loads of information. You got that to look at and look forward to reading, and you can get some learning on. Look at all these names that are and there we are. We got a bit of info to bring it full circle about the Bilderberg Group. Bernhard, who was a card-carrying Nazi, worked alongside Prince Philip Mountbatten and Sir Julian Huxley, and they created the WWF World Wildlife Fund in 1961. UNESCO, right? So all these players, the more you read, the more you research, the more these names are going to keep popping up again and again, and you'll get familiar with who they are, how they all connect and fit in as different puzzle pieces of the picture. Okay, but look at this. I mean, this is huge. This is such a massive essay, and it will really change your perspective and help you understand what's going on. That is why I wanted to spotlight it and bring it to your attention. Now, on this topic of what does he say here? Eugenics. He says people assume that eugenics disappeared with the defeat of Hitler in 1945. Not true, and here we have a book to prove it. I wonder if I can fix the exposure on this. It's a bit intense. So this is Adam Rutherford, his book Control, which is the dark history and troubling presence of eugenics. And yes, this book's called Control, and it's quite a new one, right? And it's a good place to start if you want to get your learning on about eugenics, because it's not too long, and it's pretty mainstream. So there's nothing controversial. There's nothing banned in here. It's a totally mainstream book, you know, by any and all accounts. So good place to start. Adam Rutherford, Control. Get a bit of the context and the history of eugenics. What country did eugenics start in? Right. Some people might know the answer to that. Some people might not. Find out. It could surprise you. And in fact, you don't need to go and find out. I'm going to tell you. Because I love you so much and I like to help people learn. This is the other book that I think is much worth investing in and getting to know. Move those out of the way. This is The War Against the Weak, and this is Edwin Black's book, Eugenics and America's Campaign to Create a Master Race. Did you know that eugenics was started in America? I didn't. I was flabbergasted. I had no idea that it was a movement that was publicly accepted, that was celebrated, that the kind of intellectual elites identified with. I had no idea. That was wild to me to find that out. It really was very wild. And so this book goes into that and explains it. War Against the Weak by Edwin Black. This one is a little more intense and hefty than the Adam Rutherford book, but nevertheless, it's an incredibly important read. And Edwin Black does just phenomenally detailed research. If you want a taste of his kind of work, you can have a look on my channel for the IBM and the Holocaust book review that I did. He has a whole team of people, and he just goes deep into the primary source material and the documents. So there's another one. History of Eugenics. It did not go away. All they do is they rebrand it. These ideologies don't go away. The people who want to do this kind of stuff don't go away. They just recognize that, a certain proportion of the population are paying attention to us. We better morph and shift and become something else and rebrand ourselves, and keep going. And you know, people like Matthew Ehret, people like Whitney Webb, people like Edwin Black, they work hard to bring you this information that these agendas are still out there. People are still out there rolling out eugenics and dysgenics, trying to be the arbiters of your reality and the controllers of the human herd. And I don't think we're a herd. I don't think we're a cattle-like species, although this parasite class treat us as such. But we're not sheep. We're not cows. We are sovereign. We are created in the image of the Creator. We have free will. We have the ability to connect to spirit, to grow and develop, and to hold people in our hearts, and love and compassion for the other beings on the planet and the people around us. We have so much potential, and they put so much effort and resource into divorcing us from realizing we have that potential. And that is what schooling is all about. That's what the eugenics movement is all about. That is what all the fear-mongering in the mainstream media, all the divide and conquer tactics that I talk about on these live stream, all that is all about getting you to not believe you have immense potential and are capable of great and wonderful things, and making this world a much better place for yourself and everybody you know. That is the name of the game. Okay, we are coming home pretty soon. We're about to land this thing. Thank you very much for sticking with me so far, if you are still out there. And apologies once again for that gaffe at the beginning. So embarrassing. Anyway, it's done. American Thinker. This article from November the 12th, 2023. Why we are sleepwalking into tyranny. Again, this is a new website I'm not familiar with, but this article came across my path. Bryce Buchanan. And I thought it was very much worth getting on your radar. So the world is heading quite rapidly toward tyranny. We are in a revolutionary period that will dramatically change civilization. Few people understand the gravity of our situation. Here are some of the reasons why the majority of people seem oblivious to the danger. These psychological shortcomings explain why we are sleepwalking into tyranny. So some really good work here on logical fallacies, which are encouraged, which are not encouraged, sorry, but which are used against us to exploit our better nature in many instances. So one of them is the normalcy bias. This is a cognitive bias that occurs in times of crisis, leading us to disregard any signs or warnings that we're in danger. Normalcy bias is a defense mechanism that lulls us into thinking life will just continue as it always has. I meet people who have this all the time, and they might say, oh, well, you know, every generation's got its own challenges. You know, the previous generation, they had a war, we had an economic slump, and now you've got totalitarian digital slavery, and it's just the way it is. It's the same for every generation, you know. Or people who just kind of think that because the last 30 or 40 years something was the way, seemed pretty stable or went in a certain trajectory, that it's going to continue. And I think that is incredibly naive. You got to be very sensitive and aware of the context that your life, you know, your lifespan sits within, and the leading up to it, and what happened before, and what you've lived through. And I think we've lived through an upswing. You know, certainly if I think, for what I know of my parents' childhood and my grandmother's childhood, for example, up to like the present day, it's been a massive upswing. You know, there's been more technological developments. There's been more opportunity to save, to travel, to become a homeowner. That's been in the upswing probably for like the last 2.5 generations. I would say we're kind of like just at the top of that upswing now. And we're about to go zoom, swinging back down the other way, kind of like that fairground ride, you know, the swinging pirate ship thing. And we're kind of at the top, and it's about to go woo. So people who've lived through that upswing, they're just like, yeah, you know, it always works out and it gets better in the end, and it just and that's the trajectory it goes in, because it's what it's always done for my whole life. Not necessarily. Look, you know, so you got to look at the warning signs. You got to look at the boom and bust cycles and the cyclical nature of reality, and how the system is built, because these cycles are built into the system, and they are kind of controlled and manipulated in order to steal wealth from the majority and send it to the few, right? So this normalcy bias be aware of it and don't fall into it. Get more facts and more data points on your picture and an understanding of reality to kind of and not assume that things are just like, this is the way it's always going to be, and it's going to go in a certain way because it's normal, right? The next one he talks about here is the conformity bias. This is a good one. People with this cognitive defect look to their social group to tell them what is true. There is no independent critical thinking. This is the lazy person's way of acquiring his view of reality. Yeah, so this is like, well, everyone knows ... therefore I'm going to ... You know, everybody knows that that's the way it is. Everyone knows that this particular modality of healing and health is safe and effective, so I'm going to get it and do it too. So, yeah, like the majority is pretty much always wrong about everything. You know, the classic example is, well, everyone used to think the world was flat. You know, everyone says that all the time. It's like, okay, so you think the majority was wrong in the past, but they're right now, right? So what you got to remember is, like, the majority tends to be the average, and the average is 15,000 hours of public schooling, social media, mainstream news, newspapers. You know, how many people do you know that collect and read books? Look at the average of the people you know in your circles, where they're getting the information from, and kind of extrapolate that out and find out that the average is super mainstream, bombarded, and has been given a worldview that is designed to give that is designed for everybody. So the maximum amount of people will sleepwalk into this digital tyranny that's being like constructed rapidly around us. So just because everyone's doing something or believes something, that doesn't, you still gotta question it and come to your own conclusion on it, right? That's the point. So going on with the article, there's a good bit here about Alexander Solzhenitsyn and Václav Havel, who were two brilliant antagonists of tyranny. And I just really like that phrase, antagonists of tyranny. That would be a great name for a band. It would be a good name for a podcast. It would be a great name for a series of biographical films or articles focusing on, you know, the people who stand up and speak out and help us move the needle towards the direction of freedom and away from the direction of tyranny. I love that phrase, antagonists of tyranny. It's great. But these two, they said that simply and steadfastly telling the truth was a fundamental weapon that citizens should use against tyrants. Great point. Very simple. And it's simple. Not easy, but it's simple. Solzhenitsyn said the simple step of a courageous individual is not to take part in the lie. One word of truth outweighs the world. Love it. Love that quote. And fully, wholeheartedly, 100% agree. Speak your truth. Get it out there. Tell the truth. You know, you might be wrong. I'm wrong about things. But I come at it from a place of I'm seeking the truth and I'm trying to spread the truth as I see it. I'm going to make mistakes. Do not hold everything I say in to be 100% factual and just believe it without checking it, right? I'm not going to be right about everything. And in fact, in a previous live stream, I said that people go to Sweden to get to get help with like assisted dying, and it's not Sweden, it's Switzerland. So sorry to the Swedes out there. Didn't mean to confuse those two, but you know, Switzerland, Sweden, you can kind of see where my brain made that error, can't you? But yeah, we do make mistakes. It's not about being 100% right 100% of the time, all the time. It's not about like, I'm only going to speak if I know 100% that what I'm saying is true. That would be great, but most of us are not built to be able to do that, I would argue. Most of us have suffered some kind of trauma, some kind of toxic metal insult to our system and our body, some sort of programming, whether that's schooling or mainstream media. So we can only do our best. But as long as it comes from a place of trying to spread truth and trying to help, trying to lift up, you know, the situation for everybody, then that's the main thing. Is it coming from a place of love and compassion and well-meaning intention, and you're trying to be moral and you're trying to be decent and you're trying to help others? That's the important thing, the intention. And you can make mistakes, and you can apologize later and you can correct after the fact. All good. But having the intention to stand up and tell the truth, that is what's critical, and that's what we need more of. We need more people doing, in my humble opinion. So going on with the article, the third unfortunate human trait that favors tyrants was explained by Aldous Huxley, who wrote Brave New World, and he said, there will be a dictatorship without tears, so to speak, producing a kind of painless concentration camp for entire societies, so that people will in fact have their liberties taken away from them, but will rather enjoy it, because they will be distracted from any desire to rebel by propaganda or brainwashing enhanced by pharmacological methods. And this seems to be the final revolution. He also said, by means of ever more effective methods of mind manipulation, the democracies will change their nature. The quaint old forms will remain. The underlying substance will be a new kind of non-violent totalitarianism. If that doesn't send shivers down your spine, how revelatory it is, how you can either say, oh, he's prescient because he was just so smart and he just saw where it was going. No. But if you want to believe that, that's fine. You can believe that. I would say the Huxley family, you got T.H. Huxley, you got Julian Huxley, and you got Aldous Huxley, and I'm sure there's others as well. These were insiders. These were members of the Sinecure class who were awake, aware, and wise to the plot and the agenda for everybody that was going to be rolled out for everyone else. And, he tells you, he's telling you that this is the plan and this is coming. The thing is, these people are so arrogant and so confident. They feel like they've got it sewed up, tied up shut, that they don't even mind that much if people go out and tell you the plot and tell you what's going to happen, because they know that most people won't believe it because of all the things that he said here, the propaganda and the brainwashing, the pharmacological methods that have been used to numb people, to get them docile and passive and servile and dependent, and to turn off their critical thinking, to turn off their creative instincts, turn off their connection to spirit and the divine and something higher and something bigger and larger and more meaningful than me and my little life, right? They're so confident that they've done that to enough people that they're like, yeah, write a book and tell them what the plan is. Pfft, whatever, we don't care. I think, though, they didn't count on the number of people who would start to use the internet to hoover up and gather information and to connect dots and to start speaking out and teaching others. It's why I do what I do. It's why I would encourage other people to, do something similar. We're trying to connect the dots. We're trying to look at the big picture, see what the plan is so that we can avoid it, so that we can resist, and we don't even need to resist. We don't even need to fight back. We just need to step sideways, like in the cartoon, that you see the train coming towards you and you just need to kind of just a little step to the side and whoosh, it goes past and it misses you and you're fine. That's kind of the we need to sort of Aikido it. We just need to sort of move out of the way of it, right? So incredibly useful article here. Wonderful quotes used, Huxley. And then he also said that Huxley imagined a prison without walls in which the prisoners would not even dream of escaping. It would essentially be a system of slavery where, through consumption and entertainment, the slaves would love their servitude. It's just, it makes the hair stand up on the back of my neck, He believed that the greater part of the population is not very intelligent, dreads responsibility, and is perfectly happy to let itself be ruled. Now, I don't think they are that way innately. I think they've been made that way thanks to schooling, thanks to the economic systems, thanks to the food systems in place, the medical systems in place. These all add up. this agenda of eugenics, these all add up to make people into kind of like docile, dependent people. But they are not like that by nature, I think. So, while most people are not paying attention, most of the key elements protecting freedom and prosperity are now under attack. Siren right on cue. By people who wish to control our country and the world. Globalist leaders wish to put an end to national sovereignty, enforce a new world order, control information, put an end to free speech, give the WHO worldwide dictatorial power on major health choices, ban our only reliable sources of energy, and impose a digital currency that will allow complete monitoring and control of every single citizen with a Chinese-style social credit system. At home, the US is in the looting the treasury phase of empire collapse. Our military is weak, woke, and overextended. The dominant media function as a branch of the Democratic Party. The upper levels of the Justice Department also function as a branch of the Democrat Party. Anti-white racism is widely taught and supported by the government. These are not conspiracy theories. The evidence is mostly out in the open. Yep. Great article. And links to, like, enforce a new world order. He's got a link. Control information. He's got a link. So, more avenues for exploration, more rabbit holes to dig down and dive deep into. So I hope you enjoy reading that. I think it was an excellent, well done piece of work. What is next for us? So it's 2024. It's a new year. It's January. We're in the first week of the new year. And this article dropped on January the 1st, 2024. And this is Kit Knightley telling us about how this is the year that global government takes shape. Now, a lot of people out there are like, there's no plan for a global government. There's no plan for a new world order. If you talk about it on YouTube, you get a banner underneath that says, New World Order is not a thing. It's a conspiracy theory, far-right conspiracy theory. There might be one under this episode by the time we finished. Let's see. But Kit Knightley feels otherwise. Kit Knightley's, these AI pictures are so creepy, aren't they? Look at that. Ugh, gives me shivers. Global government is the end game. He says that's been apparent to anyone paying attention for years, if not decades, and any tiny portion of remaining doubt was removed when COVID was rolled out and members of the establishment started outright saying it. Kit, seriously, members of the establishment are calling for one world government? Are you nuts? That's not true. Although it is, because in The Guardian 3 years ago, Gordon Brown calls for global government to tackle coronavirus. And I just decided I'm going to start calling this guy Boredom Brown. But this was back in March 2020. So this was right at the beginning. This was peak hysteria, peak fear, peak what the hell's going on, panic. Gordon Brown's calling for global government. So it is a mainstream admitted push, right? Global governance, aka New World Order. So what does a potential global government actually look like? Number one, they're not going to declare themselves. So they're not going to officially say, we are the one world government now. This is according to Kit. Number two, they're not going to abolish nationhood. So this is the thing about nationhood, right? It's like nowadays there's very little difference. You can get on a plane, fly somewhere, get off the plane, and it looks pretty much the same as where you got on the plane. There'll be a Starbucks and there'll be KFC and a McDonald's and so on. So the nations exist because, yes, there is a place that on a map is technically called, England. But go into England and have a look and walk around, and you'll see the same kind of stuff you see in other places. So it's the identity, the culture, the traditions, the knowledge that is preserved and passed down, the skills. That's what's going. That's what we're losing. But they'll keep nationhood, right? I agree with that. It makes sense. Number three, there will never be an overt declaration of a change of system. I agree with that as well. I think they're just building it brick by brick. And like, for example, money, right? Once of a day, you would pay it with cash, and you would take cash to the bank and put it in, and you would go and get cash out of the bank, and that would be, and then, cards. Oh, there's a card now. There's a little card, and you can use that. and then the card became a little like chip that you could tap, and then that like chip card with a chip. No, you type the PIN number in, and then it became a chip that you could tap, and then that became your phone, and you just program it on your phone, and now you just tap your phone. Each one of these is a brick in the building of the system, right? And it's not like announcement. The transfer to digital money has happened gradually in steps, and this is how they roll it out without so much resistance or a pushback, because people think it's the normalcy bias. This is normal. This is progress. This is just the next thing that happens to have been invented. And yet, when you look back historically, you can see the trail and the direction it's going. You don't have to look back that far. Like, I'm 37. I can look back to from when we got the internet to now, and I can see that it's been staged deliberately, step by step by step by step. Because if they'd have said at the very beginning, here's a little device, you got to carry it around with you everywhere, use that to pay for everything, no cash, everyone would be like, fuck off, we're not doing that. But because they've done it step by step, gradual, and they always dress it up as a convenience, and they always dress it up as this exciting thing that is so good and amazing, and it's been created by a genius, Steve Jobs. People accept it and they go along with it, and then young people get it, and young people don't question it because they never knew anything different, and they're really the targets of the system. It's the young people. So I agree, there's not going to be an overt declaration. There's just this totalitarian tiptoe. And this is where the three main pillars of global rule come in, which is 1, digital money, 2, digital ID, and 3, climate action. And then the rest of the article goes into look at these in detail. Digital money. So 90% of the nations of the world are currently in the process of introducing a new digital currency issued by the central bank. This is incredibly, unbelievably problematic, and I have a feeling it's one of those things that people will be taken surprised by. Suddenly they're going to realize, holy crap, I no longer have access to any of my money. Because I said the wrong thing, because I had the wrong opinion, because I shared the wrong meme. Now I've been denied access, and there's no physical money, so there's no recourse to just get the cash in exchange. Now, beep, beep, computer says, no, you're locked out. Sorry. That is the danger of digital money. You don't even have to break a law, right? They're just going to be like, oh, we don't like you, what you do, or we don't like your business. So it's like goodbye to small and medium businesses. It is... goodbye to doing anything that isn't approved of by the establishment, by the Sinecure class, the I don't like calling them the elite. I want to call them the parasites, because that's what they are. So yeah, simply put, digital money enables total surveillance of every transaction. And if the currency is programmable, it would also allow control of every transaction. Sorry, you've spent your allowance. You've bought the maximum amount of meat that you're allowed to have for this month. No more meat for you. Go and eat some crickets, you wanker. That's where this is going. And they're almost all digital currencies being developed along guidelines produced by the Bank of International Settlements and other globalist financial institutions. They are all being programmed by the same handful of tech giants. Who's the Bank of International Settlements? Have you heard of them? Are you aware of who they are? If not, I'm going to tell you, they are the central bank's central bank. They are the central bank of central banks. So if you know about the Federal Reserve, you know about the Bank of England, if you know that these are privately owned entities given the right to print money that all of us are then forced to use, and if we copy it, we get thrown in prison. If we refuse to use it, if we counterfeit it, we get thrown in prison. If we refuse to use it, get thrown in prison. They're really the apex of the control system of these central banks, because they're not owned by the public. They're privately owned. Their board members are not named. We don't know who runs them, and they know exactly what they're doing, because this system of finance has been perfected over many years. It's not accidental that it is the way it is, and they can flood the system with more money. and manipulate things that way. They can withhold the printing of money and manipulate things that way, right? And the Bank of International Settlements is the central bank at the center of all the other central banks. It is like the spider in the middle of the web. And the reference for that, if you want to know about it, is this book. we'll just nip over back to the book count quickly. Tragedy and Hope, A History of the World in Our Time. Now, I've got an itchy nose. Excuse me a moment. This book, Tragedy and Hope, A History of the World in Our Time, let me just move, these are the two below it, is, this is actually the biggest book I own. It's 1,600 pages or something ridiculous like that. But I've put some cards in here, and I've marked up the pages where we learn about the Bank of International Settlements. So, let's have a look. This is going to be my first time using my book cam to read for you, but hopefully we can zoom in a little bit there. All right. Chairman, yeah, so we're looking at this paragraph here, and we're going down here. And so let's start from there. To assist in this task, a new private bank called the Bank for International Settlements was established in Switzerland at Basel, owned by the chief central banks of the world and holding accounts for each of them. The Bank for International Settlements was to serve as a central banker's bank and allow international payments to be made by merely shifting credits from one country's account to another on the books of the bank. Okay, so there you have it, Central Bankers Bank. This is eminently respected and celebrated historian Carol Quigley. Okay, what else have we got? What have we got on this page? So this is, in addition to those pragmatic goals, the powers of financial capitalism had another far-reaching aim, nothing less than to create a world system of financial control in private hands, able to dominate the political system of each country and economy of the world as a whole. This system was to be controlled in a feudalist fashion by the central banks of the world, acting in concert by secret agreements arrived at in frequent private meetings and conferences. Sounds a bit like Bilderberg, doesn't it? The apex of the system was to be the Bank for International Settlements in Basel, Switzerland, a private bank owned and controlled by the world's central banks, which were themselves private corporations. Each central bank in the hands of men like Montague Norman of the Bank of England, Benjamin Strong of the New York Federal Reserve Bank, Charles Rise of the Bank of France, and Helmar Schacht of the Reichsbank, sought to dominate its government by its ability to control treasury loans, to manipulate foreign exchanges, to influence the level of economic activity in the country, and to influence cooperative politicians by subsequent economic rewards in the business world. I think that is probably enough on that. But there you go. That's Tragedy and Hope, A History of the World in Our Time. That is me showing off my brand new book cam. I hope you enjoyed that. Let's go back to the article. So this is the Bank of International Settlement. So they're the spider at the web, at the center of the web, pushing out digital currencies which are designed to enslave and trap and ensnare. You know, the internet is called a net for a reason. The World Wide Web is a web for a reason. It's because there's a predator, and that predator is using the net and the web to catch its prey. In other words, you and I. So going on with this article, we got digital identity. So this is the global push for mandatory digital identities, and that's older than the digital currency agenda, which dates back to the turn of the century. And Tony Blair, oh, here he is again, Tony Blair's national identity cards. Okay. So he had a go at pushing this through, and it failed, but it didn't. There's actually have another article here, Identity Cards Act of 2006. So this was Tony Blair's effort back, what would that be now? That's almost 20 years ago. And it was going to be national identity cards, a personal identification document and European Economic Area travel document, which were voluntarily issued to British citizens. I thought that was a really strange way to word this. They were voluntarily issued. They weren't voluntarily accepted or requested by the citizens. They were issued to the British citizens, but we voluntarily issued them. Like, who would force the Parliament of the United Kingdom to issue these? Who would force the Parliament to do it under duress? Why do they have to say that they did it voluntarily? Who are they signaling to there? We did it. We wanted to do it. It's just weird, really weird. But they were repealed in 2011, although identity card for foreign nationals did continue in the form of biometric residence permits. And so it did, like many of these agendas, they'll go 5 steps forward, 3 steps back. And when they go 3 steps back, you're like, yay, it's a victory. We got them to roll it back. Woohoo. They've backed off. They've left us alone. It's like, no, they made 2 steps progress. Did you not see? This is what they did with lockdowns, and through that whole scam was like 5. They kind of did like 10 steps forward there. Suddenly, boom, 10 steps forward. And then they went back like, I don't know, 6 or 7 steps. And everyone was like, yay, freedom. We got our freedom back. It's like, no, they made 3 steps progress there. You see how this works? And then this was just another example of that. So those cards are still here. I'm going the wrong way. Let me pause that. So digital identity, it's been pushed as a solution for every problem. Terrorism, digital identity. Illegal immigration, digital identity. Pandemic, digital identity. AI, poverty, right? So they're pushing it. And they're going to keep causing these problems. They're going to keep causing these problems and keep allowing these problems to happen until the population begs for the solution that they want to roll out. This is the way it works. Problem, reaction, solution. We really need to give us a digital identity, please. We need it to stop all this illegal immigration and to stop this terrorism and to protect us from AI. Please give it to us. That's the way the game's played. Number 3 is climate action, which is just a Trojan horse of the anti-human technocrat. As long ago as 2010, noted climate change experts were suggesting that humans are not evolved enough to combat climate change and that it may be necessary to put democracy on hold for a while. Yeah, just put it on hold for a while. Yeah, just temporary measures that never go away. We'll just grant ourselves these, we just need to do this temporarily, but, temporary measures never happens that way, does it? It's always permanent. Until people learn about it, educate themselves, talk to each other about it, and organize and just ignore it or laugh at it and mock it and push back and get it overturned. So recently in 2019, Bloomberg was publishing articles with headlines like "Climate change will kill national sovereignty as we know it," and academics are telling us states will remain unable to solve global crises like climate change until they let go of their sovereignty. And again, we've got this the narrative being that climate change is going to be blamed for all these things like energy and transport problems, health crisis, food crisis, international trade. Oh, it's not us. It's not the parasites. It's not the people who set up this fraudulent, exploitative slave banking system. Nothing to do with us, the Sinecure class kicking back, collecting our interest payments for doing absolutely nothing. Nothing to do with us. It's the weather. See how it works, indeed. So another great article there. Lots of detail, lots of analysis. One of my favorite websites, offguardian.org. Check them out, support them, throw them a few quid if you care about journalism and decent efforts to educate and inform. What's next? Oh yeah, here we go. So this is the next thing I wanted to show you, which is a documentary. We all like a good documentary, right? Let me see. So I'm gonna just plug my little headphones in here. So I'm gonna I'm getting to the end now. I'm sort of coming to the end of what I want of today's show, and I just wanted to make sure that there was no doubt left in the mind of anyone listening to this today that the New World Order and global government are real, and there's people out there pushing for this. So you got Gordon Brown even calling for it, right? Can't get much more real than that, but. A fantastic resource I would like to put on your radar is this documentary, which is by Jason Bermas, and it is called Invisible Empire, A New World Order Defined. And it's on his YouTube channel here. And you can see that the YouTubers put this helpful context banner underneath to tell you that the New World Order is a conspiracy theory that hypothesizes a secretly emerging totalitarian world government. Now, I've just realized that I don't think we claim it's secret. Maybe that's how they get away with this context banner. It's like, oh, well, they say it's secret, and there's nothing secret about it. It's totally out in the open. So that might be how they're getting away with that there. But I wanted to play a little clip here so that you could get a taste of what this is all about. This is a 2-hour documentary. It's a really good place to start your learning journey. Let's have a little preview now.
Set out to find out if a new world order really existed. And if it did, what was it? Who was involved? And what were their goals?
The very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society. And we are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret societies, to secret oaths, and to secret proceedings. For we are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy. It is a system which has conscripted vast human and material resources into the building of a tightly knit, highly efficient machine. Its preparations are concealed, not published. Its mistakes are buried, not headlined. Its dissenters are silenced, not praised. No expenditure is questioned, no rumor is printed, no secret is revealed.
Some cringe when they hear the term New World Order, despite all of these prominent people using it.
The world that maybe some people dreamt of at that conference back in Bournemouth, when it looked as if maybe history would end, that liberal democracy would triumph, that free market economics would slowly progress, and we'd have a new world order.
All right, so I'll stop it there and just skip ahead a little bit. But that was ex-Prime Minister of the UK, David Cameron, using the phrase New World Order. And it pops up all over the place in mainstream places, politicians and mouthpieces. And I'm trying to find a clip that I had queued up before. Here we go. This is the bit I want to show.
Has been around for centuries, and the term New World Order has been used frequently in recent history.
The New World Order means different things to different people, but to those who expect to be in control of it, it means the same thing. It means all the world under their control. They believe that somebody must rule. After all, people are too darn dumb to know how to rule themselves. They figured that that's their role.
The first in-depth publication of note was Samuel Zane Batten's work, The New World Order, which was published in 1919. Under the cloak of Christianity, this order speaks of a new world rising and advocates social control over all people and all resources. It promotes a world federation with a world parliament, an international court, and a global police force. Some of its goals are as follows. Community. The danger and loss in crime and degeneracy. The determination to make community life safe, sanitary, wholesome, and moral. Industrial. The disappearance of class distinctions and the solidarity of all interests in the economic process. National. The conception of the nation's welfare as the supreme concern, with the policy that everything shall contribute to this end, and
So the greater good. It's about subjugating and erasing the individual for the greater good, for the health of the nation, for the health of the state. Okay, and it goes back, and there's history there, and there's that book going back to 1919 where this idea was written about. And as I said before, the ideas continue over time, but they get rebranded and they get changed, and new people start talking about them and other people stop talking about them. But this is a really good resource to get an introductory sense and idea of the history behind this term New World Order. And so I wanted to put that on your radar, and the link to that will be below. Now, the guy we just saw from in this video, let me just see if I can get a screen grab of him. Where is he? Was a gentleman called G. Edward Griffin. And here he is, G. Edward Griffin. And what a guy. He is, he's the OG. He has been putting out books and researching and working tirelessly for many, many years on bringing the factual nature of this situation to the general public. And I wanted to highlight that he has this event, which is coming up in June this year. And this is in America, but don't worry if you're not in America, you can still live stream this event. And this is called the Red Pill Expo. And this is really kind of old school looking website, but do not judge a book by its cover. So this is, there he is now, G. Edward Griffin, and he's putting together this event, pulling together lots of different speakers to come together. Mickey Wills, the producer of the Plandemic documentaries, all sorts of people who are going to be there, doctors and MDs. Yeah, you got a real lineup, and it's going to be all about educating people and teaching them and bringing some information to them that is like more reliable and based in fact and based in evidence and verifiable, and trying to help you step out of that kind of bombardment of propaganda and state-sponsored media and into the independent world where research is often much more robust and done for the right reasons, not to control, not to misinform, not to manipulate, but in order to uplift and empower and help. And so this is G. Edward Griffin. Tells you a little bit about who he is. He's written some really excellent books. One, The Creature from Jekyll Island, which is the kind of the gold standard expose on the Federal Reserve, Central Bank of America. He's also done a book on World Without Cancer, the story of vitamin B17, which I haven't read, but I know is a fantastic resource from other people who've read it and utilized the information in there to heal themselves. So the mission is to bring world-class experts together and set the record straight on fake narratives, fake history, and fake news. And they're really looking to support individualism over collectivism as the essential cornerstone of liberty and human dignity. Now, the importance of the individual over the collective cannot be overstated, because when you put the collective first, that is when atrocities happen, and things like genocide and things like starvation and mutilation of massive populations of people, right? So you really need to build from the individual up and out. And when you think about it, the individual is the minority. The smallest minority, like if you're into minorities and representing minorities and all this kind of stuff, the smallest minority there is the individual human being, right? And so if you're doing anything to trample over that individual, then you are way more likely to commit evil, to commit atrocities, and to get involved into some shady, unethical, nasty, immoral stuff. So I would ask people to please consider having a look at the Red Pill Expo by G. Edward Griffin, checking out his books, and look at his work. He's got some long form interviews with I think I might have even mentioned him on a previous show. I feel like I did. Although I'm not sure, but I know he's been interviewed by Richard Grove, and he told his whole life story, how he got into the work that he does now, and he's been really at it a very long time. It'd be a wonderful thing to support him and help him get the message out. Awesome stuff. Red Pill Expo. Okay, so we're at the end. This is the end. This is where I'm gonna bid you
out of these troubled times. Our fifth objective,
and this is the kind of last thing that I want to play you out with. But just before I do that, let us quickly have a look at ways you can support the show, because I appreciate that people out there are checking out my work. It's incredibly humbling, and it's incredibly heartwarming to know that people tune in and find value from what I do here, that anybody does. It's extremely uplifting to my heart and my soul to know that people out there are getting some value from this and enjoy tuning in, and hopefully get the message of what I'm trying to communicate, which is that there are sinister agendas afoot, and we need to educate and inform our way out of those agendas so that we can build better alternatives and we can build communities that are resilient and that we can foster the continuation of the human species, because I love humans. I think we're incapable of incredible things, art and books and poetry and music and architecture. Just what a phenomenal thing it is to be a human, right? And I don't buy into the kind of like, we're just an animal, we're just monkeys, as I explained earlier. I believe in the second law of thermodynamics, at least as it applies to this sort of physical plane that we're currently inhabiting. And I want to see people thrive, and I want to see people survive and do well in life and get their needs met, and not hold other people down and trample over each other and maim each other and be crabs in a bucket holding each other down, or competitive, like undercutting each other and ripping each other off, all this kind of stuff. Like it's just, I don't think it's who we are, you know. I think some of us are like that, and those of us who are like that, they tend to go for high positions in corporations and governments and banks and these kind of things. But as I've been trying to show you today, they are the parasite class, they are the Sinecure class. They add no value, they provide no value, they scoop up the wealth and the hard work and the energy of good people, and we need to just shake them off our backs, you know, just shake them off our backs, starve them dry, build something better, work with each other, find the good people, put our voice out there, speak the truth, and the universe will reach out back and kind of guide you as to what you need to do next. That's at least what I've found. So if you are vibing and interested in the message and the effort and the work that I'm putting out there, it would be wonderful if you could do the usual things, like, share, and subscribe to the channel. But if you want to go above and beyond, then you can buy me a coffee by looking at the links under the video. There's a link to support me. You can join me on Instagram and Telegram, where you can just keep up to date when I'm going live and get an early preview of the show card, what I'm going to be talking about, and the articles. And then as well as that, you can just explore some of the affiliate links that I have underneath here. The big one is Richard Grove's Autonomy course. Richard Grove, you saw earlier in this episode interviewing Whitney Webb. He has been, like G. Edward Griffin, on this path of educating people and trying to wake people up to the reality that we live in, the history. He focused specifically on history, and he's a forensic historian, and he is an incredible teacher. He's got just an unbelievable sense of moral integrity and excellence that he brings to everything he does, and that is an understatement for what he brings to the Autonomy course and the people who sign up and enroll. You get coaching, you get to be mentored by a person who has been there and done that and walked the walk and come out the other side and just overcome incredible situations and learned high value skills that can really propel you forward in life, not only in terms of your career, but also in terms of your interpersonal relationships and your own relationship with yourself, right? To understand yourself better and to see that you do have value and you are capable of wonderful things and you have lots of potential. Richard often says to us in the course, your potential is immense. And a lot of people out there are going to not believe me when I say that. And it might take a few repetitions, but it is true. If you're a human being and you've got eyes and ears and you can hear what I'm saying right now, you've got access to the internet, your potential is immense. And it's never been easier to capitalize on that potential with the internet, with the technological tools that we now have available to us. But we have a kind of a window here to get out there and make an effort and make an impact and find the other people who see what we see and want to work together to get these parasites off us, right? We've got a window, because once the digital ID and the digital money and all that kind of stuff gets locked in, it's going to be so much harder. It's still going to be doable, because we're still going to have to carry on doing the work and getting rid of them, but it'll just be that much harder. Right now, we got this window where we can talk and communicate, and we can share the information. We can read the books. We can buy them. We can create content and put it out there, and build community online, and find those people in physical world and in the online world. And Richard's Autonomy course is just one of those lighthouse, shining beacons of light in the midst of all the nonsense that exists online, that we can kind of use to orient ourselves, and we can swim toward it, and we can kind of climb out of the water and find some refuge and find a bit of safety and warmth and nourishment, and kind of recuperate and rebuild our energy, and then charge our battery so we can get back out there and we can do what we were born to do, what we were placed here on this planet to do, which is different for each and every one of us. But as I said, we all have immense potential, innate skills, a unique mixture of life experience and knowledge that we can bring, and that people will resonate with, and they will reward, and they will flock to it, and they will want to hear more. So that's Richard Grove's Autonomy course. If you're interested in unlocking your potential at all, it is worth just starting the journey and the process of learning about this course. And you don't have to put any money down. You don't have to, there'll be no pressure to sell or anything. You can do an immense amount of learning and make progress without exchanging any money. Just see if it's something that is right for you. If you're at all interested in capitalizing on your innate potential, because it is immense. So those links there, all autonomy. Underneath that, just 4 courses that are close to my heart, that I love, that I think are incredibly important. The Complete Guide to Forming Communities. We are isolated, we are cut off, we are stuck inside staring at our black mirrors, and it would be good to get out there and meet people in real world, and learn how to do that in a way that is productive and mutually beneficial and can last a long time. So that's Stefan Verstappen's course. We have Ryan Cristian from The Last American Vagabond. He did a course on how to do objective research. In the age of mis and disinformation, we got to know how to iron out the wrinkles and find the inconsistencies and know what to believe, what to trust, right? So he put together a course. It's quite a short one, punchy, to the point, but it's powerful because you can take it, learn it once, and then you can apply it every time you're learning and researching. Next, we got Jay Dyer. We got Tony Myers. He's got Logic, the Art of Intellectual Self-Defense. This one's a little more comprehensive. There's history in there. There's the different logical fallacies, how to recognize them, how to avoid using them, how to use your mind to discern what is true from what is not. And that is also an essential and critical skill in today's world. And then lastly is Jay Dyer and his course, Philosophy 101. This is all about the conversation that has been going on throughout history. Who are we? Why are we here? What is the meaning of life? How do we find meaning in life? The big questions, the questions that might keep you up at night, the questions that you might like to talk to your friend about after a few whiskeys, stay up late and discuss these things. You know, Jay, that conversation has been going on for a long time, and you'll be surprised at some of the answers and ideas that have been discussed in ancient times already and debated. Okay, so there's nothing new under the sun. All the new flashy, sexy, glittery ideas that catch your attention, they've all been up before. They've all been talked about before. There's very little that is new. So we can gain an immense amount of perspective by diving in and looking at the things and the conversations that people were talking about in the past. And that is philosophy. It's philosophia, love of wisdom, I think, or love of knowledge. One of those two. But either way, it's about passion and education and information and uplifting ourselves and the people around us through knowing and learning. So that is how you can support the show if you feel so inclined. I would appreciate it very, very much. But the most important thing is just like being here and listening and taking part in that way. It means the world to me that anybody shows up and gets value and cares about these sorts of things, right? It's just incredible. It really, really is powerful and wonderful and unbelievable. Oh, so we are at the end. What time are we on? It's another long one, isn't it? Yeah. Sorry once again for the stupid gaffe at the beginning. I'm going to make sure that never happens again. And the last thing I'm going to play is a clip here, which is all about the New World Order. So if you don't believe the New World Order is a real thing, you're going to have to listen to all these politicians and talking heads from the mainstream establishment talking about it as though it is a real thing, as though it is something they're aware of, as though it is something that they are intending to bring about or interact with. And so this, I'm going to play you out with this compilation, which is no longer on YouTube, but you can find it on BitChute. So enjoy. And BitChute does take a while to load sometimes. BitChute is definitely
a new world order can emerge, a new era, freer from the threat of terror, stronger in the pursuit of justice, and more secure in the quest for peace. An era in which the nations of the world, East and West, North and South, can prosper and live in harmony. 100 generations have searched for this elusive path to peace, while 1,000 wars raged across the span of human endeavor. And today that new world is struggling to be born. A world quite different from the one we've known. A world where the rule of law supplants the rule of the jungle. A world in which nations recognize the shared responsibility for freedom and justice. A world where the strong respect the rights of the weak.
We have before us the opportunity to forge for ourselves and for future generations a new world order. A world where the rule of law, not the law of the jungle, governs the conduct of nations. When we are successful, and we will be, we have a real chance at this new world order, an order in which a credible United Nations can use its peacekeeping role to fulfill the promise and vision of the UN's founders.
What is at stake is more than one small country. It is a big idea, a new world order, where diverse nations are drawn together in common cause to achieve the universal aspirations of mankind, peace and security, freedom, and the rule of law. Such is a world worthy of our struggle and worthy of our children's future. Now we can see a new world coming into view, a world in which there is the very real prospect of a new world order. In the words of Winston Churchill, a world order in which the principles of justice and fair play protect the weak against the strong. A world where the United Nations, freed from Cold War stalemate, is poised to fulfill the historic vision of its founders. And that's why I wanted to speak to you today about the new world taking shape around us, about the prospects for a new world order now within our reach. In the coming weeks, I'll be talking in some detail about the possibility of a new world order emerging after the Cold War. But today, I want to discuss another aspect of that order. You see, as the Cold War drew to an end, we saw the possibilities of a new order in which nations work together. It refers to new ways of working with other nations to deter aggression and to achieve stability. As old threats recede, new threats emerge. The quest for the new world order is in part a challenge to keep the dangers of disorder at bay. We must build on the successes of Desert Storm to give new shape and momentum to this new world order. Only when this transformation is complete will we be able to take full measure of the opportunities presented by this new and evolving world order. The new world order really is a tool for addressing a new world of possibilities. This order gains its mission and shape not just from shared interests, but from shared ideals.
President George Bush has talked time and time again about the new world order, and this is the best chance to begin to establish the new world order, and that's why the stakes are so high.
From 1945 and the end of the war through 1989 and the end of the Cold War, we had a worldview. Republican and Democratic presidents alike, from Harry Truman to George Bush, stood for freedom and stood for certain propositions that would make America strong and healthy and grow the middle class and shrink poverty and stand against communism. And after 1989, President Bush said, and it's a phrase that I often use myself, that we needed a new world order, and instead it looks like we got a lot of disorder. And we still, and after 9/11, we've been more sensitive.
But it is the awareness itself that will drive the change, and one of the ways it will drive the change is through global governance and global agreements.
Now, much has been said by the Secretary of State and others about a new world order, about a defining moment in history. I have no doubt about the potential of this moment to be defining in terms of history, but that definition can be negative as well as positive. And how negative or positive it will be will depend on what kind of new world order we really create. Can it truly be said that the United States of America, trading off better treatment to China for an abstention on a vote, cozying up to Syria with its record of support for terrorism, or making promises to other countries in exchange for a hold your coat, you go ahead and take the risks and casualties endorsement, can it truly be said that these create a new world order? Can it really be said that we're building a new world order when it's almost exclusively the United States who will be fighting in the desert? Not alone, but almost. Displaying pride and impatience and implementing what essentially amounts to a Pax Americana. Is that a new world order? Can it really be said that this is a true new world order when it lacks a true United Nations collective security effort with a full measure of international cooperation and burden sharing, which that should carry?
With the end of the Cold War, Henry Kissinger pointed out in his superb book on diplomacy, he said, none of the most important countries which must build a new world order have had any experience with the multi-state system that is emerging. Never before has a new world order had to be assembled from so many different perceptions or on so global a scale. Nor has any previous order had to combine the attributes of the historic balance of power system with global democratic opinion and the exploding technology of the contemporary period. That was written in 1994. and it may be even more relevant today.
As I've told you before, because I love it so much, they also created the Great Seal of the United States. And that Great Seal of the United States has on it, Novus Order Seclorum, a new order for the centuries, for the ages, forever.
There is a chance for the President of the United States to use this disaster to carry out what his father, a phrase his father used, I think, only once, and hasn't been used since, and that is a new world order.
During the conflict with Saddam Hussein, which he handled so superbly in a short-term sense, we kept talking about a new world order. And then President Bush, at the end of that war, promised he would give 4 graduation addresses, 4 commencement addresses, describing that new world order and what America's role was going to be in it. Turned out he gave one of those addresses and canceled the other 3 and talked about something else. That's what, because they weren't.
And this present window of opportunity, during which a truly peaceful and interdependent world order might be built, will not be here open for too long.
You believe deeply in your system, and we believe just as deeply in our system. It is not our common beliefs that have brought us together here, but our common interests and our common hopes. The interest that each of us has to maintain our independence and the security of our peoples, and the hope that each of us has to build a new world order in which nations and peoples with different systems and different values can live together in peace, respecting one another while disagreeing with one another. Letting history, rather than the battlefield, be the judge.
It's past the point of talking. We know historically that the global governance the sort of agenda to these issues is very hard to try and, with all the best intentions, it's very hard to actually activate. We're seeing that right now. We're seeing a lot of fragmentation going on in Copenhagen, a lot of different agendas pulling in different directions. And
the closest we came to the dream was when we were doing THX and everybody was writing their scripts. Everybody was hanging out at the pool table, drinking cappuccinos and waxing philosophically about the New World Order and everything.
Type 1 civilization is a connected civilization, a single global culture, a single global language, global communication, global politics. We see this beginning now. We see it emerging all around us. The European countries are binding together slowly, forming the EU. NAFTA has been formed in North America. Eventually, we will see the rise of a single world government. We will see a single economy.
2009 is also the first year of global governance, with the establishment of the G20 in the middle of the financial crisis. The climate conference in Copenhagen is another step towards the global management of our planet. Our mission, our presidency, is one of hope, supported by acts and by deeds.
Leaders come together and establish a framework for global governance, not a world government, but sensible governance. These measures are enacted and we continue to move forward with the G20 process. We will have the kind of global governance that is necessary to ensure the stability and transparency of markets in a way that gives us the benefits of a globalized market economy without the enormous risks that...
There with my people, they were bombed, and I was just targeted like them, and as elected president, officially in charge of their protection, I couldn't do anything about it. But the point here is, it's not about me, it's about the idea of freedom. It's about the future of the whole region. It's about the future of Europe and a new world order.
The transatlantic partnership was never just the foundation of our security. It was the foundation of our way of life. It was forged an experience of the most bitter and anguished kind. Out of it came a new Europe, a new world order, a new consensus as to how life should and could be lived. The pieces are in flux. Soon they will settle again. Before they do, let us reorder this world around us.
I think the new world order is emerging, and with it the foundations of a new and progressive era of international cooperation. We have resolved that from today we will together manage the process of globalization to secure responsibility from all and fairness to all. And we've agreed that in doing so, we will build a more sustainable and more open and a fairer global society. All these new challenges are bringing together about the biggest restructuring we have ever seen, not just of the global economy, but of the global order as a whole. And 200 years ago, a famous British Foreign Secretary said that the new world had been called into existence to redress the balance of the old. In 1990, another old world ended, dominated by the Cold War, and people talked then, in 1990, of a new world order. What they actually meant then was a new political order. And what was not foreseen then, but is obvious now from everything that we see and do, what we experience in every day of our life, is the sheer scale and speed and scope of globalization. And it's only now that we can begin to understand that the world order that globalization brings and what it's going to look like, it's driven forward now not just by the balance of military strength, the Cold War times, or ordinary political power. It's being driven forward by a seismic shift in economic power that we see around us. But what does a new world order mean for countries like ours who are looking to succeed? I suggest that the countries that are going to succeed are those that combine flexibility, free trade, open markets, with proper stewardship of the environment and investment in education, infrastructure and innovation. And the question for us is how we meet and master all these challenges to ensure that Britain enhances its competitiveness in the process and realises what I believe is our destiny of success in this new world order. So, in conclusion, ladies and gentlemen, a new world is emerging. It is a new world order with significantly different and radically new challenges for the future. But today, with Asia already outproducing Europe, India and China are clearly becoming part of our new order.
The world that maybe some people dreamt of at that conference back in Bournemouth, when it looked as if maybe history would end, that liberal democracy would triumph, that free market economics would slowly progress, and we'd have a new world order.
Don't you think America's place in the new world order should be? It's always been seen as the global policeman. But as you said before, it's hard to see with all these military conflicts where the winner and loser lies. What should America be doing?
I think the global policeman should be the United Nations.
What sort of a financial deal should Obama be seeking to strike when he travels to China next month?
No, I think this would be the time, because you really need to bring China into the creation of a new world order, financial world order.
What do you think the most important thing is for Barack Obama? Obviously, you're here to talk about the anniversary for U.S.-China diplomatic relations, but if you had to say this is going to be the country or the conflict or the place that will define the Obama administration, what would it be?
The president-elect is coming into office at a moment when there are upheavals in many parts of the world simultaneously. You have India, Pakistan, you have the jihadist movement. So he can't really say that it's one problem, that it's the most important one. But he can give a new impetus to American foreign policy, partly because the reception of him is so extraordinary around the world. I think his task will be to develop an overall strategy for America in this period when really a new world order can be created. It's a great opportunity. It isn't just a crisis. There's a need for a new world order, but it has different characteristics in different parts of the world.
The affirmative task we have now is to actually create a new world order, because the global order is changing again. And the institutions and the rules that worked so well in the post-World War II era for decades, they need to be strengthened.
The way we're going to win over the long term is not just militarily. We've got to win over hearts and minds. And what that means is we've got to invest in countries that have no educational infrastructure and have no means for young people to get ahead. We've got to give them a stake in creating the kind of world order that I think all of us would like to see.
I mean, there is a conflict about what the mission is. The United States says that Gaddafi must go. Members of the coalition say this is strictly a humanitarian mission. How can the coalition work together when they can't agree on what the goals are?